Chapter 860. Chen Tingfang's expression softened, and she said earnestly, Zissou, Mom is doing this for your own good. Don't entrust your everything to a man. Men are unreliable. You have to be careful. Zissou said pitifully, Mom, I know. I'm not feeling well. I want to go upstairs and lie down for a while. Okay, go ahead. I'll ask Dr. Gao to come over. It's okay. I'll be fine after a nap. Zissou was worried that if she was really pregnant, it would be bad if Dr. Gao found out. This was a high-end and quiet restaurant. Even during the peak lunch hour, there was no hustle and bustle. Jiang Tianhao took the menu from the waiter and handed it to Ji Yuqi in a gentlemanly manner, allowing her to order first. After ordering, Ji Yuqi took a sip of tea and smiled. Senior, how are you getting used to living at Oriental Real Estate? Jiang Tianhao's gaze was complicated and his voice was low. It's okay. His pride did not allow him to complain to her. Ji Yuqi pretended not to notice, and the smile on her face became brighter. She teased, That's good. I was worried that someone as outstanding as Senior would be ostracized by his colleagues. He smiled, but his smile was a little unnatural. He took a sip of tea and changed the topic. You shouldn't worry about me and Zissou. I don't know how to get along with her anymore. Thinking about it, it's better for both of us to calm down. His slender fingers caressed the fine porcelain teacup. His eyes were dim, and his tone was bleak. He sounded like he was hurt by love, but also like he had no choice. It really made one want to comfort him. Of course, Ji Yuqi could not disappoint him. She said gently, Senior, although I don't know what happened between the two of you, I know that Zissou loves you very much. If there's any conflict between the two of you can talk it out and resolve it. If you keep ignoring Zissou like this, she might misunderstand. I heard from the servants that Zissou drank a lot last night. Fortunately, Xiao Yihan sent her back. Otherwise, it would be dangerous for a girl to be outside alone. Jiang Tianhao frowned. Xiao Yihan? Ji Yuqi nodded. Yes, didn't Zissou mention it to you? Xiao Yihan is Auntie Chen's best friend. He also has a good relationship with Zissou. When he came to our house to pick up Zissou, I saw him once. He's quite handsome. I heard that his family background is also very good. She cleverly stopped talking and changed the topic. Why are the dishes so slow? I'm a little hungry. Jiang Tianhao felt very uncomfortable. He felt like he had been betrayed. That Xiao Yihan, Zissou had never mentioned it to him. Could she be feeling guilty? He suppressed the suspicion in his heart and looked at Ji Yuqi, who was pouting and complaining. He could not help but smile. Don't worry, it'll be here soon. Just as he said, the dishes were served very quickly. Jiang Tianhao considerately scooped soup for her and picked up food for her. The two of them chatted and laughed softly. From afar, they looked like a sweet and warm couple. In addition, the two of them were very good-looking and attracted a lot of attention. Unfortunately, this warm and harmonious scene was quickly broken by someone. You, how can you treat me like this? A pure and delicate girl in a white dress suddenly walked in front of them. Her beautiful face was filled with sadness, and her pair of beautiful big eyes were filled with tears. She looked at them pitifully, like a little white flower that had been abandoned. The people around them automatically imagined that the girl in the white dress had been betrayed by her boyfriend and best friend. They looked at Jiang Tianhao and Zissou with envy and condemnation. Jiang Tianhao's hand that was picking up food for Ji Yuqi stiffened. Ji Yuqi calmly wiped the corner of her mouth and slowly raised her head, revealing a gentle smile. Zissou, you came at the right time. Senior has already explained to me that the girl you met last night is only his colleague. There has been a misunderstanding between you two, so you must resolve it in time. Everyone suddenly realized that the girl was kindly helping her best friend solve her relationship problems. As for the girl named Zissou, she was too paranoid. She misunderstood her boyfriend at every turn. Zissou noticed that the people around them were looking at her differently. She bit her lip, adjusted her facial expression, and smiled slightly. So that's how it is. I'm sorry, Sister Chichi. I misunderstood you. Then, she gracefully sat beside Jiang Tianhao and said softly, Tianhao, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you last night. In public, Jiang Tianhao naturally couldn't embarrass her. He walked down the stairs she gave him and said warmly, I also did something wrong. Fortunately, Yuchi is willing to help us resolve the misunderstanding. We have to thank her properly. Okay. Yi Zisa nodded vigorously and smiled at Ji Yuchi. Sister Chi-Chi, thank you. You're welcome. I'm happy as long as you two make up. Ji Yuchi winked playfully. I'm already full, so I won't be a third wheel. You two take your time. Ji Yuchi didn't care about the two's attempts to persuade her to stay and left. When she walked out of the street, she glanced through the window at Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou, who were sitting opposite each other in silence. Her lips curled into a malicious smile. Ha! After so many arguments, these two are about to collapse. After Ji Yuchi left, the atmosphere became a little awkward. Jiang Tianhao was silent. He brought a new set of chopsticks for Yi Zissou and scooped a bowl of soup for her. He gently placed it in front of her and still didn't say a word. Yi Zissou didn't intend to be the first to give in, but she didn't expect Ji Yuchi to take advantage of the situation. This made her feel a great sense of crisis. She decided to firmly control Jiang Tianhao in her hands. And the best way for a woman to control a man was to have children. She gently held his hand. Her pure and beautiful face looked shy and happy at the same time. She looked at him affectionately with her big, watery eyes and said softly, Tianhao, I want to tell you a piece of good news. Jiang Tianhao pursed his lips and said coldly, What good news? Her long eyelashes fluttered, and she quickly glanced at him. Then she lowered her eyes and said softly, I'm pregnant. Clang! The teacup beside Jiang Tianhao's hand was knocked over, and the tea spilled all over the table. He suddenly grasped her hand tightly, and his eyes darkened. What did you say? Yi Zissou's heart clenched. What kind of reaction was this? Did he not want to have children with her? She bit her lip, leaving teeth marks on it. She repeated softly, I said, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant with your child. His fingers tightened around her wrist as if he was going to crush her bones. She cried out in pain, and her eyes became misty. She looked pitiful. It hurts, Tianhao. Aren't you happy that I'm pregnant with your child? Jiang Tianhao woke up abruptly and let go of her wrist. Seeing that there were a few clear fingerprints on her fair skin, he said apologetically, I'm sorry. I was just too surprised. He held her wrist and gently rubbed the fingerprints on it. He said gently, Zissou, don't worry. I'll take responsibility. When you graduate, we'll get married. Zissa bit her lip. Her eyes were probing as she asked softly, Then what about this child? Jiang Tianhao's expression froze. After deliberating for a while, he stared into her eyes and said slowly, Zissou, when we get married in the future, we can have as many babies as we want. But let's give up on this child, okay? Yi Zissou widened her eyes in disbelief and shouted emotionally, You said before that if we had a child, it would be good to have it. Why are you changing your mind now? Is it because your feelings for me have changed? Her sudden raised voice attracted the attention of the people around them. Everyone looked at Jiang Tianhao. Their eyes were full of condemnation and disdain, as if he was a scumbag who had abandoned her after having sex with her. Jiang Tianhao felt like he was sitting on pins and needles with so many pairs of eyes staring at him. He helplessly reminded Yi Zissou to keep her voice down. He held her hand and said softly, Let's talk outside. No, you have to make it clear. Yi Zissou was furious. She completely ignored the current situation and held on to Jiang Tianhao. Jiang Tianhao's temper flared when he failed to persuade her nicely. He felt that she was embarrassing him and trampling on his manly dignity. With a gloomy face, he called the waiter over to settle the bill. Then he grabbed her wrist and forcefully dragged her out of the restaurant. When they finally found a secluded place, Jiang Tianhao flung her hand away. His face was ashen as he growled in a low voice. When did you become so insensible? Do you really want to embarrass everyone before you stop? Yi Zissou sobbed. Her face was full of tears. She shouted back, aggrieved, Why are you so fierce? Do you think I want to get pregnant? Do you think I want a child at such a young age? Isn't it all because of you? You dislike me now. You hate me and want to break up with me. That's why you don't like me in any way, right? Jiang Tianhao pinched the space between his eyebrows in frustration. Seeing Yi Zisu's sobbing so heartbroken, he didn't feel any pity for her. All that was left in his heart was irritation and irritation. Jiang Tianhao closed his eyes to hide the complex emotions in them. He slowly opened them again. Holding her shoulders with both hands, he said gently, "Zisu, where did you get these wild thoughts from? How could I abandon you? Listen to my explanation. I don't want to keep this child because we're both too young, especially you. You haven't graduated from university. If people find out that you're pregnant before marriage, it'll damage your reputation. I made this decision for your own good." Yi Zisu looked up with teary eyes and said pitifully, "But I can't bear to part with this child. He's the product of our love. There are many university students getting married and having children now. Tianhao, as long as you're always by my side, I won't care even if people laugh at me." Jiang Tianhao's eyebrows twitched. University students getting married and having children? She was hinting at him to get married quickly. His mind worked quickly. He knew that the chances of persuading her were very small, so he might as well calm her down first. Besides, Chen Tingfang would never allow her to have a child. Welfare Xinwu 799. Chapter 861. He gently wiped away her tears and said softly, "Let's talk about the child slowly. Don't cry. Your eyes will swell up if you keep crying." Yi Zisu didn't say anything else. She had her own plans. It didn't matter if she had a child or not. What was important was to use this opportunity to force Tianhao to marry her. Abort it, abort it. Abort the child right now. Jiang Tianhao played tricks and passed the news of Yi Zisu's pregnancy to Chen Tingfang. When Chen Tingfang found out, she was furious. She wanted to stuff her disappointing daughter back into her womb and have another baby. "Mom, I beg you, let me keep the child." Yi Zisu shook her arm with tears streaming down her face. "Mom, this child is your grandson. Can you bear to do this?" Chen Tingfang flung her hand away and said angrily, "If he were married and had a child, I would definitely dote on him. But his parents are so disappointing that he doesn't even have the right to be born now." She poked Yi Zisu's nose with her finger and said fiercely, "You brat, I've spoiled you since you were young, haven't I? How many times have I told you not to sleep with anyone casually? Even if you have sex, you have to take protective measures. Look at you. What did you listen to me? Huh? Mom," Yi Zisu called out softly. Her tears flowed even more fiercely. Her big eyes were full of pleading. "Mom, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have disobeyed you. But the child is innocent. He's still so young. I can't bear to abandon him. Mom, I beg you, let me keep the child. As long as I marry Tianhao now, the child will be a legitimate child. Mom, I beg you, please talk to Uncle Ji and ask him to agree to our marriage ahead of schedule. What sins did I commit in my past life to give birth to such a troublemaker like you?" Although Chen Tingfang scolded her, she still felt sorry for her daughter. She frowned and said, "Are you really going to marry Jiang Tianhao?" Yi Zisu nodded hurriedly. "I won't marry anyone but him in this life." Chen Tingfang knocked hard on her forehead and said angrily, "Good for nothing. How many times have I told you that Jiang Tianhao isn't the right person for you? Look at him. One moment, he's flirting with Ji Yuqi, and the next moment, he's having an ambiguous relationship with a female colleague. Last time, he even hit you because of that female colleague. A person like him who's full of tricks won't spend the rest of his life with you." Yi Zisu's eyes reddened again. She felt very uncomfortable, but she couldn't help but defend Jiang Tianhao. "Mom, don't talk about him like that. He and Ji Yuqi are just acting. It's not like you don't know that if it weren't for Ji Yuqi, Tianhao wouldn't have been able to work at Dongfang Real Estate, and he wouldn't have been able to enter G Group in the future. As for that female colleague, he just joined the company, so of course he has to build a good relationship with his colleagues. Actually, that night, that woman's leg was injured, so Tianhao helped her. I misunderstood him. It's only right that I'm angry." Chen Tingfang shook her head and sighed. "You're hopeless. Your brain is filled with Jiang Tianhao. No matter what, I won't agree to you marrying him. I definitely won't agree to you keeping the child. Zisu, your mom's only daughter. Mom won't harm you. I'm doing this for your future happiness. Be good and abort the child. You're still young. You can have as many children as you want in the future. She didn't expect that after saying so much, her mother still wouldn't agree to her keeping the child. Yi Zissou was heartbroken. She screamed desperately, "Mom, I just want to marry Tian Hao. If you don't agree, I'll go look for Uncle Ji. I'll beg him." She ran to the door like a madwoman. Chen Tingfang's face darkened. She shouted, "Stop right there. If you dare to walk out of this door, don't be my daughter." Yi Zissou stopped in her tracks. She froze on the spot. Her back was slightly arched. She buried her head and cried heartbroken. Her tears fell like a broken string of beads. She clenched her fists and said word by word, "Mom, don't force me." Chen Tingfang's heart ached, and she was frustrated. Why couldn't her daughter understand her painstaking efforts? However, for her daughter's future, she still put on a cold and heartless expression. "I mean what I say. If you insist on keeping the child, don't acknowledge me as your mother. I'll treat it as if I've never given birth to a daughter like you." Yi Zissou's sharp nails dug into her palms. Her frail shoulders trembled. She stood stiffly on the spot. After a long time, she suddenly turned around. Her eyes were cold as she said expressionlessly, "I'll abort the child. Are you satisfied, Mom?" Zissou, Chen Tingfang's heart ached. She couldn't help but walk towards her. Yi Zissou's eyes were cold. Her entire body exuded a faintly discernible dark aura. She glanced coldly at Chen Tingfang, turned around, and left. The door closed with a bang, startling Chen Tingfang. The room was empty, just like her heart at that moment. Yi Zissou, dressed in a white dress, floated eerily across the corridor. The cleaning servants in the corridor shivered and felt an inexplicable chill. Ji Yuqi eavesdropped on the conversation between Chen Tingfang and her daughter. She stood in front of the window, her right hand propping up her chin. She smiled as she watched Yi Zissou float out of the courtyard like a ghost. She muttered to herself, "Oh, the little white flower has turned black. She's probably going to find the scumbag to take responsibility now." She leisurely picked up her phone. After the other party picked up the call, she smiled and said, "The show is about to begin, dear," in the car. Yi Zissou muttered to herself, "I will use my own methods to protect the man I love." She gripped the steering wheel tightly with both hands. Her cold gaze stared ahead of her. She stepped on the accelerator and sped off at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, in the director's office of the Oriental Real Estate Design Department, Director Gao Hong threw a report letter in front of Lin Shui. He said angrily, "What's wrong with all of you? First, it was Jiang Tianhao. Now it's you. Lin Shui, you're a girl. How can you not know how to love yourself? You actually seduced a married man. Now his wife has sent the report letter to the company's executives, demanding that the company must fire you. What do you think you should do?" Lin Shui was so scared that her face turned pale. Tears welled up in her eyes. She said helplessly, "Director, I didn't do it. I really don't know what's going on. Director, you must believe me." "What's the use of me believing you? Now the whole company knows that you seduced another woman's husband. Even the president himself said that employees who damage the company's image must be fired. Lin Shui, hand over your work today." Gao Hong waved his hand impatiently. "Once you've handed over your work, you don't have to come tomorrow." Lin Shui still wanted to plead, but Gao Hong was already annoyed. He waved his hand and asked her to leave. She pushed the door open and walked out with a heart as dead as ashes. She didn't dare to look at the mocking and contemptuous expressions of her colleagues. She covered her face and ran to the bathroom, crying loudly. The colleagues in the office whispered about Lin Shui's improper behavior. They said that she was a vixen who seduced a married man. Jiang Tianhao heard their mocking laughter from time to time. The forum was also crazily refreshed with this news. He clenched his hands. He wanted to shut those people up, but he couldn't anger them. He could only watch helplessly as Lin Shui ran wildly with a broken face. He gritted his teeth and finally couldn't help but follow her out. The suppressed sobs of a woman came from the female bathroom. Jiang Tianhao stood outside the bathroom door, not knowing whether to enter or leave. Fortunately, no one came at this time. Otherwise, if they saw him, they would call him a pervert. After waiting for 5 or 6 minutes, Lin Shui came out of the bathroom with red and swollen eyes. When she saw him, she immediately lowered her head like a frightened rabbit. Jiang Tianhao, who had always been eloquent, was suddenly at a loss for words. He didn't know how to comfort her. After a moment of silence, he said gently, "I believe that you're innocent." Lin Shui's tears rolled down again. She sobbed, "Thank you." Jiang Tianhao handed her a tissue. "Don't be sad. I think that there might be some misunderstanding. Do you want to talk to the director again?" Lin Shui shook her head sadly. "There's no need. The so-called evidence is right in front of them. They won't listen to my explanation." She lowered her head and brushed past him with a disheartened heart. She muttered to herself, "I really don't know who I've offended. Why do they have to do this to me?" She was just talking to herself, but Jiang Tianhao's heart trembled. Her thin and weak back was shrouded by a thick sadness. She was like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind, destined to sink into the mud. Seeing her was like seeing himself in the past. He was weak, incompetent, and bullied by others. Reality was cruel. If you couldn't stand at the top, you could only look up to others forever. That was why he wanted to climb to the top of power at all costs. Jiang Tianhao clenched his fists and watched her leave. Her words suddenly echoed in his ears. "Who did you offend?" Lin Shui had always been obedient. If he had to say who she had offended recently, it could only be her. His pupils suddenly shrank and his eyes darkened. His phone suddenly rang. Seeing the name of the caller ID, Jiang Tianhao's deep eyes flashed with disgust. He slowly pressed the answer button. Yi Zisu's voice traveled into his ears. "Tianhao, let's talk. We're on the rooftop of your company building." On the spacious rooftop, Yi Zisu leaned against the railing and looked at the bustling city expressionlessly. Occasionally, a few birds flew by in the gray sky. Cars shuttled back and forth on the road. All kinds of people were as small as ants, busy and silent. It made her feel lonely for no reason. Steady footsteps came from behind her. She turned around, and a beautiful smile bloomed on her lips. "Tianhao, you're here." Jiang Tianhao stood 3 steps away from her. His handsome face was indifferent and emotionless. His tall and proud posture was like an unsheathed sword, and his cold aura rushed toward her. He stared into her eyes and said in a low voice, suppressing his anger, "Did you report Lin Shui for seducing a married man?" "Of course not. I don't know what you're talking about." Even though she denied it, Yi Zisu still clenched her fingers guiltily and glanced to the side unnaturally. Attention, Xinwu 799. Chapter 862. Who is Jiang Tianhao? After dating her for so long, how could he not tell that she was feeling guilty? His anger swelled as he strode forward and grabbed her wrist. Gritting his teeth, he said, "You're still lying, Yi Zisu. How can you be so vicious? What did Lin Shui do to you that you have to treat her like this? She's just a weak woman. You actually ruined her reputation and caused her to lose her job. What do you want her to do in the future?" He didn't have the slightest bit of pity as he held her wrist tightly, almost crushing her bones. She was in pain and angry. She couldn't understand why they didn't punish Lin Shui until today after she sent the letter anonymously to the Eastern Real Estate Company. But it didn't matter. As long as that vixen couldn't stay there any longer, it was fine. She sobbed sadly. "Tianhao, how can you say that about me? I've never done that kind of thing. That night when I saw you two being so intimate, I was really angry. But you also explained that there was nothing going on between you two. I know I misunderstood you too, and I still blame myself. I originally wanted to find a chance to apologize to Shui Lin. You actually misunderstood me and harmed her. You've made me so sad. I'm so sad." She sobbed, thinking that her acting was brilliant, but she missed the look of disgust in Jiang Tianhao's eyes. He slowly released her fingers and coldly took 2 steps back. He calmly interrupted her crying. "Why did you come to see me today?" Seeing that he was no longer entangled in Lin Shui's matters, Yi Zisu secretly sighed in relief. She lifted her tear-stained face and smiled tenderly. "Tianhao, in order to let our baby have a complete family, let's get married." Jiang Tianhao frowned and quickly relaxed. "Zisu, you haven't graduated yet. You should focus on your studies. Moreover, my career has just started. I can't give you and the baby a stable life. It's really not the right time to talk about marriage. Yi Zisu's expression changed. Her voice was urgent and sharp. Are you unwilling to marry me? Was her mother right? Once a girl gave herself to a man, she was worthless? Jiang Tianhao's tone was a little impatient. Of course I'm willing to marry you, but the time isn't right yet. Don't forget what our goal is. If we get married early, we'll only push Ji Yuqi further and further away. Without her help, I won't even be able to enter the G group. For the first time, Jiang Tianhao regretted provoking such a stupid, incompetent, and vicious woman like Yi Zisu. Other than being jealous and dealing with her love rival, what other abilities did she have? She wasn't as smart and beautiful as Yuqi, nor was she as pure and cute as Lin Shui. He really didn't know why he fell in love with her in the first place. Yi Zisu didn't understand the complex emotions in his eyes. She quickly walked forward and grabbed his arm tightly, as if she was afraid he would run away. She said anxiously, "We can hide it from Ji Yuqi and get the marriage certificate first. Isn't she very obedient to you now? As long as you say something, she'll definitely believe you." Tianhao, I already have a baby. Even if you don't think for me, you have to think for the baby. Do you want him to be called an illegitimate child the moment he's born? Jiang Tianhao's eyebrows twitched. He never intended to keep this child. He suppressed his annoyance and continued to appease her. Zisu, you don't understand. My current situation in the company isn't very good. If I can't make a career for myself, even if Ji Yuqi pleads for me, Ji Bowen won't allow me to enter the G group. Don't you understand? What's important isn't Ji Yuqi, but Ji Bowen. The decision-making power is in his hands. Yi Zisu, who had been holding back for a long time, finally lost her temper. She vented all the anger that had accumulated in her chest. She flung his hand away and said loudly, "Since Ji Yuqi isn't important, why are you still entangled with her? Jiang Tianhao, have you been using me as a springboard to get close to her from the beginning?" As soon as the words left her mouth, both of them were stunned. Yi Zisu only blurted it out in a moment of anger. When she saw Jiang Tianhao's ashen face, she realized that she had made a big mistake. She hurriedly grabbed his hand and said, I'm sorry. I was just too angry, you're right." Jiang Tianhao avoided her hand and coldly interrupted her. "I used you to get close to her. Since I'm a despicable person in your eyes, there's nothing more to say between us. Let's break up. Let's break up." Those 3 words sent Yi Zisu straight to hell. She stood there in a daze, watching him mercilessly turn around and leave. The surging anger and boundless despair were like a large hand that was tightly gripping her throat, suffocating her. Her entire body was shrouded in a dark aura, and her eyes were burning with raging flames. She madly hugged him, her slender fingers gripping his arm like iron pliers. She screamed in a shrill voice, "I'm not breaking up with you. I'm not breaking up with you no matter what. Jiang Tianhao, how could you do this to me? Let go." Jiang Tianhao suddenly pushed her away. Yi Zisu was wearing 10-centimeter high heels, so her body naturally leaned back when he pushed her. Jiang Tianhao turned sideways to face her. When he saw her fall to the ground, his eyes narrowed and his fingers clenched tightly. He didn't reach out to help her, but let her fall to the ground. With a thump, Yi Zisu fell to the ground. Her abdomen suddenly hurt, and she felt a warm current gushing out from her lower body. Her face was pale as she grabbed Jiang Tianhao's trousers in horror. She was so scared that she cried out, "It hurts! Tianhao, the child, I beg you. Please save our child." Jiang Tianhao stood motionless in front of her, looking down at her face. She cried until her face turned pale, and she was in so much pain that her face turned pale. She kept pleading with him, and a hint of tenderness appeared in his eyes. He bent down and caressed her delicate skin. He whispered, "Don't be afraid. I won't let anything happen to the child." "Tianhao, I'm so scared." Bright red blood flowed down her legs, dyeing her white dress red. She leaned into Jiang Tianhao's arms, and her whole body trembled in pain. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Jiang Tianhao leaned her head against his chest. He looked over her head at the blue sky, and his lips curved into a sly smile. This child shouldn't have existed in the first place. When the ambulance arrived, there was a pool of blood under Yi Zisu's body. It was a ghastly sight, and she was about to faint from the pain. When she was lifted onto the stretcher, she held tightly onto Jiang Tianhao's hand, refusing to let go. He comforted her softly and affectionately, perfectly playing the role of a caring boyfriend. The two nurses were extremely envious of Yi Zisu. The empty rooftop regained its silence. A graceful figure flashed out from the corner, and she sent the video to the person on the phone. A bright smile appeared on her pure and beautiful face, and she said cheerfully, "Dear, are you satisfied with my service? If you are, don't forget to give me a good review, dear." On the other end of the phone, Ji Yuqi was nestled in Shunja's arms, watching the entire show through the tablet. Her lips curved into a smile. "Dear, I'm very satisfied with your service. I'll give you a 5-star review, dear." "Thank you, dear. Next time, remember to look for me if there's such a good thing. That's all. I won't disturb you from flirting with Big Boss anymore. Bye-bye." Lin Shui, or more accurately, Lan Shui, happily closed her flip phone. She put her hands in her jeans pockets, hummed a tune, and skipped down the stairs. Lan Shui was Zhe's eccentric second sister, and also Shunja's right-hand woman. She had an angelic face and a demonic heart. Her favorite task was to play all kinds of roles and deceive all kinds of men. She had a reasonable explanation for this strange hobby, and that was to use it as a way to find and test her future husband. After learning the truth, Ji Yuqi silently lit a candle for Lan Shui's future husband in her heart. When Lan Shui heard that Ji Yuqi needed to place a spy by Jiang Tianhao's side, she happily recommended herself. She disguised herself as a weak and harmless little white rabbit and infiltrated the Eastern real estate company, paying close attention to his every move. Of course, as a qualified spy, Lan Shui was very professional. She seized every opportunity to destroy the relationship between Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zisu. Ji Yuqi was in charge of digging a hole, and she was in charge of burying the person. The two of them cooperated seamlessly. Ji Yuqi put the deer penis into the chicken soup. She was in charge of taking photos of Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zisu having sex in the car, and then posted them on the company's forum. She also intercepted the report letter sent by Yi Zisu. When Ji Yuqi reminded her that the time was right, she then handed the report letter to the company. She acted in front of Jiang Tianhao and successfully drove a wedge between the two of them, shattering the last trace of feelings Jiang Tianhao had for Yi Zisu. Walking out of the Eastern real estate company, Lan Shui looked back at the building. She pushed the sunglasses on the bridge of her nose, and her lips curved into a wicked smile. Goodbye, Jiang Tianhao. From now on, Lin Shui would no longer be found in this world. The tablet in her hand finally stopped at the pool of blood. The smile on Ji Yuqi's lips froze as she stared at the pool of blood with a complicated look in her eyes. She wasn't a good person, but she wouldn't go so far as to lay her hands on a child. She had thought that her plan was foolproof. Jiang Tianhao would be forced into marriage by Yi Zisu, and then the two of them would hate each other and torture each other. But she didn't expect that Jiang Tianhao would be so cruel. He deliberately pushed Yi Zisu to the ground. The high-definition image clearly showed Jiang Tianhao's demonic sneer. Ji Yuqi suddenly realized that Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zisu didn't really love each other. Jiang Tianhao truly loved himself. He was selfish to the core, and he would do anything for greed. She couldn't help but guess that in her previous life, even if she was killed and Yi Zisu married Jiang Tianhao, Yi Zisu wouldn't be happy for long. Because at that time, Jiang Tianhao was in a high position and wouldn't allow himself to have an illegitimate son. Beauty novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 863. Ji Yuqi curled her lips mockingly and said softly, "Aja, do you know what's the easiest thing to cheat in this world?" Shunja hugged her tightly and whispered, "Feelings." She nodded with a bleak expression. "Yes, feelings. In her past life, she and Yi Zissou were losers, and only Jiang Tianhao was the winner. She lowered her eyes slightly and stared at the pool of blood on the screen. She felt a little depressed. No matter what, this child had indirectly died in her hands. Don't look at it anymore. They asked for it. A large hand took away the tablet in her arms, and the bloody screen disappeared. Shunjin naturally pulled her into his arms and rubbed his chin against her soft hair. His deep voice was like a high-quality musical instrument. Only a child born with the love of his parents will be happy. Otherwise, it would be better not to be born in the first place. Ji Yuqi's lips curved. This man, he must be trying to comfort her. In her warmth, she couldn't help but think of his parents, and her heart ached. She turned around and hugged him tightly. Her lips gently rubbed against his cheek, and a warm atmosphere spread in the room. Hugging the person she loved, even if there were no words, their hearts were close. Yi Zissou had a miscarriage. In the end, she couldn't save the 1-month-old child. She threw herself into Jiang Tianhao's arms and cried sadly. Jiang Tianhao patted her back and said with a voice full of guilt, "I'm sorry, Zissou. It's all my fault. If it wasn't for me, the child wouldn't have." "No, Tianhao, I don't blame you. It's just that we weren't fated to be with the child." Yi Zissou's face was full of tears, and her heart was full of holes. It was the first time in their relationship that she hated this man. She hated him for being so heartless and for killing their child with his own hands. "Zissou, the more you act like this, the more upset I feel. Hit me, scold me." Jiang Tianhao took her hand and slapped it on his face. Yi Zissou quickly clenched her fist to prevent herself from hurting him. She sobbed, No. If I hurt you, I'll be the one feeling heartache. Since it's already like this, let's just let it go, Zissou." Jiang Tianhao's eyes were slightly red as he looked at her, touched. When Ji Yuqi followed her family into the ward, she saw this scene and was shocked. These two people were acting in a drama, one more disgusting than the other. She walked leisurely at the back, waiting to watch a good show. Sure enough, Chen Tingfang rushed to Jiang Tianhao and dragged Jiang Tianhao up at lightning speed. She raised her arm high and slapped him across the face. She roared like a fire-breathing dragon. "Jiang Tianhao, I handed my precious daughter to you, and this is how you treat her? What did she do wrong to you?" "Oh, she really did wrong to him in every way." Ji Yuqi leaned against the wall and cursed silently in her heart. Jiang Tianhao was really a good man who knew when to yield and when not to. After being slapped, he still maintained a humble expression and said sincerely, "It's all my fault. I'll let Zissa down. Annie, as long as it makes you feel better, you can hit or scold me as you wish." Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows playfully. She had learned something new. This was what it meant when someone slapped you on the left side of your face, and you still wanted her to slap you on the right side. How despicable. When Chen Tingfang heard this, she immediately raised her arm, intending to give him another slap. Before her hand landed, it was caught by Ji Bowen. He said with a sullen face, "Tingfang, stop fooling around. Even if you teach him a lesson now, it won't solve anything." Chen Tingfang lowered her arm bitterly. Ji Bowen stared coldly at Jiang Tianhao and went straight to the point. "Jiang Tianhao, Zissa lost her child because of you. What do you plan to do?" Jiang Tianhao secretly clenched his fists. When he faced Ji Bowen, hatred raged in his chest, but the time wasn't right, so he couldn't reveal it. The expression on his handsome face was sincere as he said solemnly, "Uncle Ji, I originally planned to make some achievements before marrying Zissou. Now that something like this has happened, I can't let her wait any longer. If Zissou doesn't mind living a hard life with me, I want to marry her as soon as possible." Yi Zissou couldn't believe it. She suddenly looked up at him. He was willing to marry her. The hatred in her heart quickly dissipated. She thought that perhaps she had misunderstood him. He still loved her, and the matter with the child was just an accident. Ji Yuqi sneered in her heart. She had really underestimated Jiang Tianhao's scheming. He clearly hated Yi Zissou so much, but he was still willing to marry her for his own benefit. He proposed to marry Yi Zissou so readily and played the role of a responsible man because he knew her father's personality. Her father had always had a sharp tongue, but a soft heart. Even if he didn't like Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou, he still couldn't bear to let them live a hard life. Sure enough, after careful consideration, Ji Bowen slowly said, "If your work outside is not successful, you can come to G Group. As long as you treat Zissou well, I won't treat you unfairly." A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Everyone's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Chen Tingfang originally didn't want her daughter to marry Jiang Tianhao, but the matter had already been settled. The only thing she could do was to fight for more benefits for her daughter. She lowered her eyes slightly as she thought about her plan. Jiang Tianhao was just as Ji Yuqi expected. His move could be said to be cutting off all means of retreat. He was also very guilty. Fortunately, when Ji Bowen made this promise, his anxious heart relaxed. He solemnly swore, "Uncle Ji, don't worry. I will definitely treat Zissou well. I won't let her suffer any more grievances." Ji Bowen nodded in satisfaction. "Your wedding will be set for next month. Zissou, don't go to school for the next few days. Take a leave of absence and rest well at home. Tingfang, I'll leave the wedding to you. You must make sure that Zissou's wedding is grand." Chen Tingfang hurriedly agreed. Yi Zissou's eyes reddened slightly. She said gratefully, "Thank you, Uncle Ji." Ji Bowen's expression became much gentler. He nodded. "Rest well. Don't let your thoughts run wild." After speaking, he turned his gaze to Jiang Tianhao. "Tianhao, after you and Zissou get married, come work at the G Corporation. If the two of them got married while he was still working in an outside company, it wouldn't be good if word got out." "Yes. Thank you, Uncle Ji." Jiang Tianhao's performance was neither servile nor overbearing. Ji Bowen was slightly satisfied. There were still matters to attend to at the company. Ji Bowen only sat for a while before hurrying to the company. Ji Yuqi used the excuse that she had school to attend and left immediately. After she left, Chen Tingfang gave her bodyguard, Xie Bing, a look indicating for him to follow her. Xie Bing was helpless. His mission was to protect Chen Tingfang's safety. He wasn't to interfere in the fight between the rich and powerful. However, he couldn't stop Chen Tingfang from using Lu Jianfeng's kindness to him. He could only follow her instructions and follow Ji Yuqi. Chen Tingfang reprimanded Jiang Tianhao in front of Yi Zissou. Jiang Tianhao continued to smile apologetically while Yi Zissou spoke up for him. After the commotion, Chen Tingfang sighed and said, "I don't want to say anything else. Tianhao, Zissou treats you wholeheartedly. You can't let her down. Otherwise, I won't let you off." Jiang Tianhao's tone was sincere. "Auntie, please don't worry. I definitely won't let Zissou down. I'll believe you for the time being. You stay here with Zissou. I'll go back and prepare for the wedding." Chen Tingfang had already planned it out. She had to make Ji Bowen pay for a house and a car for Yi Zissou and her husband. It would be best if the house was a villa with a garden and a swimming pool. Of course, she had to tell the public that Jiang Tianhao bought it himself. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing for the second miss of the Ji family to marry a poor boy. However, she didn't think that Jiang Tianhao, who had no family background and had just graduated from university, couldn't afford a villa. No one would believe her if she said it. It would just be a joke. Of course, Ji Bowen wouldn't let her do as she pleased. Villa? Sorry, no. However, he didn't treat them unfairly. He bought a high-end apartment in a luxurious area for them as their wedding home. He also bought a BMW for Jiang Tianhao. As for the rest, if she wanted it, she had to earn it herself. As soon as the news of their marriage spread, it caused a stir in the upper-class circle. Some gossipy ladies guessed that Yi Zissou was pregnant before marriage and was in a hurry to hold a wedding to cover up her embarrassment. Coincidentally, there was a rumor that Yi Zissou was not only pregnant, but also had a miscarriage because of Jiang Tianhao. Jiang Tianhao married her because of his responsibility. Everyone sighed again and used the two of them as negative examples to teach their own children. The night before the wedding, Ji Yuqi suddenly received a call from Jiang Tianhao. He was silent for a long time before he said in a hoarse voice, "Yuqi, I'm sorry. I've let you down." Ji Yuqi sneered. "Let you down? Oh no, I've never had feelings for you." "Senior." Her sobbing voice traveled to Jiang Tianhao's ears. He gripped the phone painfully and said in a low voice, "Yuqi, I'm sorry." Yuqi laughed miserably. Her laughter sounded so sad. She said, "I don't blame you. I can only blame ourselves for not being fated to be together. Senior, treat Zissou well in the future. Don't let her get hurt again." Jiang Tianhao was silent for a long time. His voice was as dry as an unpolished stone. "Yuqi, can you wait for me?" Yuqi wished she could drag out the man on the other end of the line and give him a good beating. He kept breaking the record for shamelessness, eating what was in his bowl and thinking about what was in his pot. Did he really think that he was a Casanova and that every woman had to listen to him obediently? However, since there were scumbags, there were bound to be asterisk cheese. In her previous life, Yi Zissou had Gigai as the woman behind him. In the end, she succeeded as a mistress. Yuqi was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She gritted her teeth for a long time and slowly suppressed her anger. She said calmly, "Senior, I won't wait for you. I wish you and Zissou happiness." She emphasized the word happiness. Happiness? It would be a wonder if she could be happy. Before he could reply, she had already hung up the phone. Jiang Tianhao listened to the beeping sound from the phone, and his heart felt empty. It was as if he had lost the most important thing to him. He stood there in a daze for a long time. He closed his eyes and slowly opened them again. His gaze was cold. As long as he took back G Group, would he be afraid that he wouldn't be able to take back Yuqi's heart? Just you wait, Yuqi. You're still my woman. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 864. Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou's wedding finally took place amidst a sea of congratulatory messages. Under the blue sky and white clouds, their wedding was grand and romantic on a lush green lawn. The moment the bride and groom kissed, Yuqi couldn't help but think of herself in the past. She had also rushed to Jiang Tianhao's embrace with a blissful smile on her face. But what awaited her was betrayal and destruction. What about Yi Zissou? What awaited her? After the wedding, Jiang Tianhao would bring his mother to the city. His mother was an authentic farmer and was more conservative in her thinking. In her previous life, she despised Yuqi for not knowing how to do anything and even despised her for embarrassing her son. Every day, she would scold or treat her coldly. She would often complain to her son and badmouth her. Yuqi racked her brains, but still couldn't please her mother. In the future, Yi Zissou would have to face all these troubles. Let Yi Zissou and Jiang Tianhao, mother and son, torture each other. Yuqi's lips curled into a smile. Her watery eyes were as cold as ever. A tall figure approached her. Suddenly, a hand appeared on her waist. She turned to look at the approaching person. Her eyes were tinged with warmth as she said softly, "I thought you wouldn't come." Shunja's hand on her waist tightened. As the two of them were standing in a secluded area, no one noticed their movements. He lowered his head naturally and kissed her cheek. In a low voice, he said, "Of course I'm here for you." During this period, Yuqi rarely met Shunja in order to avoid Xie Bing's surveillance. Most of the time, the two of them contacted each other via video call. Shunja had long wanted a hug and kiss her like this. Yuqi poked his chest with her finger and said in a displeased tone, "Stop fooling around. Be careful not to be discovered." "It's okay. Aze will keep watch in the dark." Shunja kissed her on the lips. After a while, he let go of her and hugged her. He muttered unhappily, "Xie Bing should be dealt with. He's always between us. He's so annoying." Yuqi patted his arm to comfort him. "Don't worry. Chen Tingfang asked Xie Bing to spy on me because she suspects that I have someone backing me up. I'll divert the trouble and let her misunderstand." Shunja frowned and looked at her. "Are you referring to Gu Fifan? Our Raju is so smart." Yuqi tried her best to flatter him so that the petty man wouldn't be jealous. She smiled and said, "Our hearts are connected, right? The Gu clan is very influential in Ing City, and Gu Fifan is very good at hiding his strength. Isn't it just right for him to be my backer?" Shunja's frown deepened. "Why go through so much trouble? Am I not as good as Gu Fifan?" Ji hugged his arm and said gently, "It's not suitable for our relationship to be made public yet. Moreover, I don't want you to attract Chun Tingfan's attention." "Aja, you said that you won't interfere in my affairs. Are you going back on your word?" She looked up at him and pouted. Her expression said, "If you dare to say yes, I'll cry in front of you." Shunja's heart softened immediately. However, he still had to fight for his rights. He said with a straight face, "You can divert the trouble, but you're not allowed to do any intimate actions. You're not allowed to hold hands. You're not allowed to touch his face. You must keep a distance of 3 steps away from him." 3 steps away. That was social distance. At most, they would be considered ordinary friends. How could they fool Xie Bing's sharp eyes? Ji thought to herself. She puffed her cheeks and reluctantly said, "Oh." Shunja's slender fingers poked her puffed cheeks. "If I find out that you've exceeded the safe distance, I'll punish you." His voice was pleasant to the ear, but it made her feel gloomy. She blushed when she thought of his so-called punishments in the past. The two of them kissed for a while before separating. They returned to the wedding venue one after the other. There were guests gathered there, and there was a lot of laughter. Ji walked to Lin Yushi's side and gently touched her shoulder. She chuckled and said, "Why are you here alone in a daze?" Lin Yushi leaned close to her shoulder and teased in a low voice, "I don't have a secret boyfriend to date. Of course I'm alone in a daze." Ji face heated up. "How did you find out?" Lin Yushi glanced in a certain direction and said calmly, "Because you entered the venue one after the other. Others might not have noticed, but how could I not see it with my eagle eyes?" "Okay, you're good." Ji sighed from the bottom of her heart. Fortunately, Lin Yushi was her friend and not her enemy. "What are the two of you talking about? You look so happy." Gu Fifan had unknowingly walked to their side. He was dressed in a white suit, which made his figure look tall and slender. Coupled with his elegant and noble behavior, he was simply a graceful Prince Charming. Ji narrowed her eyes slightly and smiled. "It's just a chat between girls. Mr. Gu, you've been very popular recently. There are headlines about you on the entertainment page every day." Gu Fifan raised his eyebrows. His pair of exquisite foxy eyes were overflowing with light. He combed the hair in front of his forehead handsomely and said with a sad face, "Chi, you know that a handsome, talented, and good-looking young master like me has many women who have taken the initiative to send themselves to me, but I haven't even touched a finger of theirs. Those media are used to making groundless accusations and always write some sentimental love stories based on their imagination. You're so smart, you definitely won't misunderstand, okay?" Ji shrugged and smiled teasingly. "So the carnivorous man has begun to transform into a herbivorous man. It's really an eye-opener for me." "Mr. Gu, do your fans know that you're so pure and simple? Their hearts are about to shatter into pieces." Gu Fifan took a step forward and stared at her jade-like cheeks with a burning gaze. "That can't be helped. Who asked me to fall in love with you now? In my eyes, other women are just decorations." Ji couldn't stand it and shook her shoulders. She took the opportunity to take 2 steps back and distance herself from him. Lin Yushi also looked like she was struck by lightning. She waved her hand and said, "Cousin, I beg you. Yuchi and I are both pure girls. We really can't stand your sweet words." Gu Fifan's handsome face darkened, and he glared at her. "Are you my biological cousin? Why are you trying to undermine me?" Lin Yushi looked surprised. "Could it be that you're not my aunt's biological child? Otherwise, how could you not be my biological cousin?" "Yushi, well done." Ji couldn't help but burst out laughing. She didn't expect that she would be so good at pranking people, even though she looked cold and aloof. This girl was so mischievous. Gu Fifan's eyebrows twitched, and he gritted his teeth. His eyes shot daggers at Ji who didn't mind watching a good show, and Lin Yushi, who had an innocent look on her face. He snorted and said, "You two brats only know how to make fun of me with words. That's fine too. If you have any trouble in the future, don't come looking for me again. Who asked me to not be familiar with you two?" Lin Yushi's innocent face changed, and she pounced on him obsequiously. She said cheerfully, "Ah, Cousin, my biological cousin, I want to go to England in a few days. You must help me persuade my mother. Gu Fifan raised his chin arrogantly. Brat, now you know to call me your biological cousin. When your cousin was chasing his girlfriend, why didn't you know to help him? Lin Yushi's mouth twitched. She really wanted to tell her cousin that Yuchi was already taken. Ji Yuchi's face darkened. She expressed that she didn't hear anything and quickly took 2 steps back. She was even further away from Gu Fifan. She subconsciously looked in Shun's direction and saw admiration in his eyes. That was close. Fortunately, she maintained a distance of more than 3 steps. She realized that she was becoming more and more like a strict husband. Ba, what husband? They hadn't even started dating yet. Her mind was running wild. The 2 cousins were still bickering when Gu Fifan suddenly stopped. He said to Ji Yuchi, who was in a daze, Chi, let's have dinner together this weekend. Ji Yuchi replied with an ah in confusion. She was obviously still in a daze. I said, let's have dinner together this weekend. Gu Fifan was afraid that she would reject him, so he added, Yushi will come with us too, right Yushi? At an angle that Ji Yuchi couldn't see, Gu Fifan winked at Lin Yushi. Lin Yushi was speechless. She couldn't keep up with her cousin's jumping thoughts. He was still bickering with her a second ago, and the next second, he was suddenly flirting with girls. Looking at his pleading and threatening eyes, Lin Yushi couldn't say no. But on the other side was her best friend, and she couldn't betray her. Just when she was in a dilemma, Ji Yuchi smiled and joked, Okay, you are now the most popular rising star in Ing City. Yushi, and I should also celebrate for you. Lin Yushi smiled at her gratefully. Her lips curved, and she responded with a gentle smile, but her heart was a little sad. Gu Fifan, please forgive me for my selfishness. I only wanted to protect Shunja, so I drew Chun Tingfang's attention to you. The promised dinner for 3 turned into a date for 2 people. According to Gu Fifan, Lin Yushi had a bad cold and couldn't go out, so she missed the appointment. Ji Yuchi received a call from Yuchi when she was in the bathroom. She kept apologizing, saying that she had to stay at home because of her cousin's threats and promises. In the end, she sighed and said, Yuchi, I can see that my cousin really likes you. Sigh. He can only blame himself for waking up too late. You are already taken. Ji Yuchi looked at herself in the mirror and said softly, I'm sorry. She didn't know if she was talking to Lin Yushi or Gu Fifan. Silly, it's not your fault. Okay, I won't talk to you anymore. Although it's not very nice of my cousin to do this, you should pretend that you don't know anything and have a good meal with him. In the future, I won't get involved in your affairs anymore. It makes me feel like I betrayed you, and I feel terrible. Ji Yuchi felt depressed. In fact, she should be the one feeling guilty. She wanted to pretend to be close to Gu Fifan, but Yushi just happened to create an opportunity for her. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 865. This was a high-class Western restaurant located on the top floor of the building, overlooking the entire city. When Ji Yuchi returned from the washroom and stepped into the main hall, she heard a beautiful melody. A handsome man in a white suit sat next to the piano in the middle of the hall. His slender fingers danced merrily on the piano keys, and the light and mellow music flowed in the air like a gurgling stream. Gu Fifan raised his head, and his picturesque eyebrows were smiling. His sexy thin lips parted as he sang an Italian love song. His mellow and magnetic voice was like wine that had been stored in the cellar for many years, fragrant and intoxicating. His deep and charming eyes were fixed on her, and his gentle and affectionate gaze was glued to her body. He was so focused and affectionate, as if she was the only one in the world. He gently poured out his love for her. Because of his bold actions, she felt uncomfortable all over, but because Xie Bing was very likely to be lurking here, she did not show it. Instead, she wore a smile and quietly met Gu Fifan's gaze. This scene did fall into Xie Bing's eyes. After a simple disguise, he sat in a corner near the wall. He obeyed Chun Tingfang's orders to follow Ji Yuchi, but he did not find out which man she was in close contact with. He thought that he would return empty-handed, but he did not expect her to reveal her foxtail today and go on a date with the eldest young master of the Gu family. This was a huge discovery. In addition, the narrow-minded Shun Jia also saw this scene. Although he agreed with Ji Yuqi's plan, he did not say that he would not supervise her date with Gu Fifan. Shinja sat near the window, and his malicious eyes stared coldly at Gu Fifan, who was playing the piano in the middle of the restaurant. His well-defined fingers clenched tightly, and the veins on the back of his hand throbbed. He could not wait to throw the man who was coveting his baby out of the window. Even the couple sitting at the table next to him could feel the tyrannical aura he was emitting. The girl whispered in her boyfriend's ear, "Look at the handsome guy at the next table. He's staring at the handsome guy who's singing. Could it be that he's jealous?" The boy whispered, "I think so too." Both of them liked the girl standing at the door. The girl shook her head. "No, I think the two handsome guys are a couple." But the handsome guy playing the piano could not bear the pressure from his family and society. He decided to abandon the same-sex couple and fall in love with the girl. So the handsome guy at the next table is jealous. The boy wiped his sweat. Earth's people could no longer stop the Fujoshi. Ji Yuqi was completely unaware that she had already become a despicable mistress who stole someone else's lover. After the initial awkwardness, she quickly adjusted her state of mind, ignored the burning gazes of the crowd, and gracefully returned to her seat. At the end of the song, there was a warm applause. Gu Fifan closed the piano and stood up gracefully. He looked at Ji Yuqi affectionately from a few tables away. His lips were slightly open, as if he wanted to say something. Ji Yuqi's heart tightened, and she spoke first with a bright smile. "Thank you for the gift. I like it very much. But if you don't come down, the enthusiastic audience will ask you to play another song. Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen?" After saying that, she winked playfully. Her lively and cute appearance immediately won the favor of most people. The enthusiastic audience joked and said loudly, "The little girl is right. Young man, sing another song." A young man echoed. After such a commotion, Gu Fifan could not confess anymore. His eyes darkened. How could he not see that Yuqi did not want him to use this opportunity to confess? So she spoke before he spoke to liven up the atmosphere. Of course, Shunja also saw it, so his mood was a little better, and his hostility was restrained a little. Xiabing did not know the inside story, so he did not suspect so much. However, he was cautious and would not make a simple judgment. So he followed Ji Yuqi for a week and found that in addition to her close relationship with Gu Fifan, she also had a close relationship with Tang Feng. But there was a clear difference between the two. So, when he reported to Chen Tingfang, he analyzed, when Miss faced Tang Feng, she was more passive. I felt that she did not want to get along with Tang Feng. But when facing Gu Fifan, she was very natural. The two of them got along very casually, more like a couple. Chen Tingfang frowned and pondered. She carefully recalled the man she had seen dating Ji Yuqi near the World Trade Center. Although it was only a side profile, she remembered that the man was very aristocratic. He was a kind of gentle and affectionate man, unlike Tang Feng's arrogant and awe-inspiring personality. Moreover, if Tang Feng was Ji Yuqi's backer, Tang Hejia, that old man, would have come to her door and asked Ji Bowen to divorce her. How could he be quiet and not say a word? To sum up, Chen Tingfang analyzed that Ji Yuqi was backed by Gu Fifan. Otherwise, it was impossible for a weak woman like her to escape from her trap again and again. During these days, Yi Zissou and Jiang Tianhao went abroad for their honeymoon. Chen Tingfang had nothing to do. In addition, when she was preparing for the wedding, she took the opportunity to embezzle a sum of money. So, she had the leisure to think about how to kill Ji Yuqi and her brother. Poison? Kidnap? Car accident? Gangsters fight? Shoot? Throw bombs directly? No. Each one was more difficult than the other, and they were too eye-catching and easy to be exposed. If Gu Fifan stopped her again, she might go for wool and come home shorn and lose herself again. Chen Tingfang was distressed. After thinking about it, she gave up the idea of killing them directly. She planned to dig out Ji Yuqi's backer first. Gu Fifan was infatuated with Ji Yuqi because of her face. If her face was ruined, a playboy like Gu Fifan would kick her away. Chinting Fang's eyes were cold. After thinking for a long time, her lips curved into a cold smile. She had a detailed plan in her heart. In the afternoon, Ji Yuqi just came out of the swimming pool with a towel draped over her body. The maid came over with a phone. "Miss, you have a call for you. It's from Mr. Gu." Ji Yuqi said thank you and took the phone. She smiled and said, "Young Master Gu, why are you so free? After meeting with a group of old men, I suddenly missed you. I called your cell phone, but you didn't answer. I wanted to try my luck and called your home. I didn't expect you to really be at home." Gu Fifin's voice was languid with a faint smile. It sounded gentle and affectionate. "You're so annoying. Don't be so glib." Ji Yuqi smiled at Yun Yun. She waved her hand and dismissed the maid. She lay leisurely on the recliner and wiped the water droplets on her head. She lowered her voice and said, "Fifin, don't call my home in the future. Let's hang up first. I'll call you back when I'm back in my room." Chen Tingfang stood on the balcony on the second floor and watched Ji Yuqi walk towards the living room while drying her hair. Behind her stood the maid who passed Ji Yuqi the phone. She did not turn her head and asked indifferently, "Who called?" The maid replied respectfully. "He said his surname is Gu. Miss seems to be very familiar with him. Miss also said that Mr. Gu should not call home in the future. She said that she would call him back when she was back in her room." Chen Tingfang's eyes flashed, and her lips curled into a cold smile. Ji Yuqi still wanted to hide her true intentions, but unfortunately, she had accidentally exposed herself. Gu Fifin must have called her to ask her out again. It was the best time to make a move. Ji Yuqi changed her clothes and called Gu Fifin back. His female secretary reminded him that he was attending a department meeting. Ji Yuqi smiled and said, "President Gu, I won't disturb you since you're so busy. Let's talk again when you have time. It's not an important meeting. Just postpone it for 10 minutes." Gu Fifin waved his hand and gestured for the secretary to do as he said. He then laughed in a low voice and said, "It's rare for you to take the initiative to call me. Even if it's an important matter, I have to postpone it. Hey, President Gu, won't your employees dislike you for your irresponsible attitude?" Ji Yuqi could not help but complain. Gu Fifin laughed happily. "That can't be helped. In my eyes, my career is not as important as a beauty." Ji Yuqi joked, "President Gu, did you always chase girls like this in the past?" He paused, and his voice suddenly became low. "No, you're the only one." Ji Yuqi's smile froze on her face. She suddenly felt very guilty. Because of her selfishness, she had dragged Gu Fifin into this mess. Even if she was sure that Chun Tingfang would not harm Gu Fifin, it could not change the fact that she had used him. It was very despicable to take advantage of other people's feelings. How was she different from Jiang Tianhao? Her heart was in a mess, and she sounded a little despondent. "I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye." Yuqi. Gu Fifin had just called her name when the phone beeped. He frowned slightly, not knowing why she had suddenly become so strange. Gu Fifin called her cell phone, but no one answered. He texted her, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong?" Ji Yuqi looked at the text, and her mind was in a mess. She could not help but think of all the things that had happened in her previous life. Strictly speaking, Gu Fifin was not a scumbag. He was just a playboy. In her previous life, he had hurt her because he had been schemed against. In this life, he had not done anything to hurt her. In fact, he had even helped her a lot. She could not make use of him like an enemy. She had not thought of how to reply when he sent another text. "Did my words bother you?" She gritted her teeth and wrote, "Actually, I've been making use of you all this time." Gu Fifin was silent for about a minute. He raised the corners of his lips bitterly and replied, "I know." Those 3 words were like a flame that burned Ji Yuqi's eyes. She held her cell phone tightly, and there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. Beep, beep. Another text came. He said, "I don't mind being used by you. Maybe I owed you in my previous life. Add, Shinwu 799. Chapter 866. Ji Yuqi felt a lump in her throat. His words made her want to cry. No matter how cold and powerful she had become in this life, the sadness from her previous life was still a nightmare that she could not get rid of. She closed her eyes and forced back the tears in her eyes. She replied slowly, "No, we are even. We are even. You don't owe me, and I don't owe you." Gu Fifan held his phone tightly and stared at the line of words on the screen. He was in a daze. The secretary knocked on the office door. "President Gu, you should go to the meeting room." "All right, I got it." His voice was hoarse beyond recognition. "President Gu, are you all right?" The secretary, Miss, blinked her eyes and expressed her concern. The rich and handsome man in front of her was single. She was young and beautiful, so she still had a chance. Gu Fifan suddenly raised his head and caught the passionate look in her eyes. He was very familiar with this look, but at the same time, he hated it. His eyes became fierce, and he said coldly, "From tomorrow onwards, you don't have to be my secretary anymore. Go find the HR manager and report to the logistics department." The secretary's eyes widened in shock, and her beautiful face was full of disbelief. "President Gu." Gu Fifan raised his hand to stop her from continuing. He coldly brushed past her and walked towards the meeting room with steady steps. The secretary felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She did not come back to her senses for a long time, and tears fell down her face. She was just concerned. What did she do wrong? Sob, sob, sob. The boss nowadays is so heartless and unreasonable. After Gu Fifan finished the meeting, Ji Yuqi's face was still lingering in his mind. She was cold, expressionless, smiling at him and angry. Her different expressions intertwined with each other, and it made his head hurt. He angrily punched the table, and his fingers quickly tapped on his phone. He sent a message to the familiar number. "We are not even. We will never be even. Ji Yuqi, you still owe me. I will make you my woman." Ji Yuqi lay on the sofa and stared blankly at the text message. She thought for a moment and replied, "It's not worth it. Don't waste your feelings on me. I won't like you." As soon as she sent the message, he called her. His deep voice was filled with suppressed anger. "Woman, what's wrong with me? Why do you dislike me so much?" Ji Yuqi pinched her eyebrows and said helplessly, "Gu Fifan, do you have to be so childish? It's not that you're not good. It's just that I don't have any feelings for you. I'm making things clear because I don't want you to misunderstand, and I don't want to hold you back. Gu Fifan, I only treat you as a friend." As soon as her voice fell, she heard a bang sound from the phone, as if something had been broken. After a long time, Gu Fifan's cold voice, which was very different from his usual, came through. "Okay, I'll be your friend." "As a friend, don't you owe me an explanation?" "What explanation? Why are you acting so strange recently?" He sneered softly and said self-deprecatingly, "In the past, you wouldn't agree to go on a date with me. I didn't want to think too much about it. Tell me, what do you want me to do for you?" Ji Yuqi didn't feel good in her heart. She sighed. "I'm sorry. I apologize for my behavior. I don't need an apology. I need an explanation. I can't say, 'I'm sorry.'" Gu Fifan was so angry that he almost died. His heart felt as if it was pierced by a sharp sword, and it was so painful that it was bleeding. He gritted his teeth and roared, "I'm really King cheap. The women who love me can line up from here to East Street. I just had to fall in love with a heartless woman. I'm sorry." Other than these 3 words, she really didn't know what else to say. "Forget it. You didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't reject my date. I'm the one who's cheap. What does it have to do with you?" His voice sounded hoarse and lonely, which made Ji Yuqi feel very uncomfortable and guilty. However, there was no love. She had given all her love to Shunjia. The conversation ended unhappily. Ji Yuqi lay on the soft cushion. She felt very depressed and restlessly rolled around. She didn't know that there was another person who was also very depressed, and that was young Master Shun. Shunjia regretted being soft-hearted and listening to Yuchi's plan to let her get close to Gu Fifan. Every time they went on a date, he would secretly monitor them. Jealousy surged in his chest. He was already sullen enough that he couldn't see her during this period of time, but he still had to watch her smile at another man. It was simply cutting his heart with a knife. As a man, he couldn't protect his woman and had to let her protect herself. This was simply a kind of humiliation. Shunjia made up his mind. Even if Yuchi didn't like him interfering in her affairs, he would still interfere. He couldn't let her do whatever she wanted. This time, the date was at Mystery Park. Mystery Park was a large amusement park. There was a fountain in the leisure area. Sparkling water sprayed out from the statue of a goddess and gathered at the bottom of the fountain to form a lake. Many young couples threw coins into the pool to make a wish. There were also people taking photos as souvenirs. It was very lively. Ji-Yuchi wore jeans and a white long-sleeve shirt that was tied at her waist. She wore a sun hat on her head. Her casual outfit made her look even more youthful and beautiful. She carried a small backpack and stood beside the fountain, waiting for her date. From afar, a tall and straight figure walked towards her with steady steps. The man was wearing an expensive white casual outfit that outlined his tall and handsome figure. Brown sunglasses rested on the bridge of his straight nose, revealing his thin lips and thin, clean chin. Ji-Yuchi was slightly dazed. She had an illusion that she was looking at Shunja. This figure, this temperament, it was simply too similar. However, it couldn't be. She shook her head and threw this unreliable thought to the back of her mind. She quickly walked towards the man and smiled. "Fifin, you're here." The man nodded elegantly. His thin lips were slightly pursed, but he didn't say anything. Ji-Yuchi didn't mind. She smiled and said, "I haven't been on a roller coaster in a long time. Let's go on a roller coaster." The man remained silent and reached out to hold her hand. Ji-Yuchi instinctively struggled, but the man held her hand even tighter. She coughed uncomfortably and moved closer to his ear. She whispered, "Liangyu, I asked you to pretend to be Gu Fifin for those people who are secretly watching us. You just have to fool them. There's no need to make it so realistic." The man turned to look at her. The huge sunglasses covered his face. His lips moved a few times. Ji-Yuchi thought he was going to say something, but she didn't expect him to purse his lips again. His lips and chin were becoming more and more like Shunja's. Ji-Yuchi blinked suspiciously. She reached out to take the sunglasses off his face, but he nimbly avoided her. His deep voice was like cold spring water. "Miss Ji, please have some self-respect." Ji-Yuchi's lips twitched. Who should have self-respect? He was the one who held her hand first. Okay, I'll have some self-respect. Can you please let go of my hand? If Shunja found out that another man had touched her hand, he would definitely be jealous. Liangyu spat out 2 words as if they were gold. Acting. Ji-Yuchi was speechless. Fine. She had no choice but to beg this man to pretend to be Gu Fifin. He was addicted to it. "Let's go. We'll take the roller coaster." Liangyu held her hand and led her forward. The two of them sat on the roller coaster. The staff reminded Liangyu to take off his sunglasses to avoid danger. Before Liangyu could say anything, Ji-Yuchi hurriedly said, "I'm sorry. We won't be taking the roller coaster. I suddenly remembered that I have high blood pressure and can't take the roller coaster." If Liangyu took off his sunglasses, the people who were secretly watching him would realize that he wasn't Gu Fifin. Ji-Yuchi was annoyed by her own carelessness. The staff was helpless. Some passengers felt that they were being delayed and complained softly. Ji-Yuchi smiled apologetically. I'm sorry. I hope everyone has a good time." The roller coaster finally started moving. Seeing the train speeding along the winding track, the passengers screamed. Ji-Yuchi couldn't help but look envious. Liangyu turned to look at her and said in a deep voice, "Do you like it that much?" Ji-Yuchi's eyes dimmed, and she said indifferently, "I've only been on the roller coaster once. It was when I was 13 years old. I was with my parents in Ahon. Our family of 4 was happy. I only found out later that the day before that day, my mother had a checkup and found out that she had cancer. She wanted to spend her last days with us siblings happily." Liangyu was silent for a moment and said slowly, "I'm very sorry." Ji-Yuchi smiled. "It's okay, Aja. Can you ride with me next time?" Liangyu's body stiffened. His thin lips twitched, and he sounded a little uncomfortable. "You saw through me." Ji-Yuchi hugged his arm with a smile and sniffed him with her little nose. Her voice was soft. "I'm not a fool. Do you think that you can fool me by changing your clothes, wearing a pair of sunglasses, and imitating Liangyu? When we sat together just now, I smelled a familiar scent on you. I only suspected it at first, but I'm sure now. The fake Liang Yu, who was the real Shunja, hugged her waist naturally. He didn't care that they were in public and kissed her hair gently. He whispered, "It's not good for my wife to be too smart. I wanted to give you a surprise, but it's a pity." "I'm your wife." Ji Yuqi snorted. "Surprise? It's more like a shock. You're so worried about me. I already said that I only treat Gu Fifan as a friend. Liang Yu, too. He actually betrayed me. I'll teach him a lesson. Don't be too harsh on him. It's not easy for Liang Yu either." Shunja shamelessly sent his subordinate to her to vent her anger. "If Liang Yu hears this, he'll definitely cry. I've never seen such an unkind boss like you." Ji Yuqi poked his chest rudely. Shunja's lips curved. Even though his sunglasses covered his eyes, Ji Yuqi could feel that he was looking at her affectionately. Her cheeks couldn't help but heat up, and she secretly held his hand. Beauty novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 867. The two of them strolled around the amusement park and were a little tired. Ji Yuqi suggested that they rest at the rest area near the fountain. Shinja naturally had no objections. They sat on the bench with drinks in their hands and looked at each other with smiles on their faces as they chatted softly. In the distance, a pair of sinister eyes were watching their every move. Ji Yuqi raised her wrist and glanced at the time. A glint flashed through her beautiful phoenix eyes. She raised her head and said with a smile, "Aja, I'm a little hungry. I want to eat a hamburger. Can you buy it for me?" "Okay, wait for me here in Gigai. I'll be back soon." Shinja leaned sideways and kissed her cheek. His dark sunglasses covered the complicated look in his eyes. Ji Yuqi watched his handsome back disappear into the distance. Her gaze was gentle and her lips were curved into a smile. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that she was staring at her lover. "B*TCH, I've been so good to you, and you've actually hooked up with another man." Following a furious reprimand, a slap came flying towards Ji Yuqi's cheek. Ji Yuqi seemed to turn her head in shock, but in reality, she had just barely dodged the slap. She shrank back in fear and said in a trembling voice, "You? Who are you? I don't know you at all." The middle-aged man in front of her was wearing an old suit, and his facial features were well-defined. His eyes were wide open, and he was furious. He pointed at Ji Yuqi's nose and scolded, "You B*TCH, my wife was kind enough to sponsor your education and send you to university. I didn't expect you to have evil intentions and deliberately seduce me, causing me to divorce my wife. Now that I'm bankrupt and have no money, you've hooked up with another gigolo. You B*TCH, I won't let you off today." The surrounding people were in an uproar. They had just seen the girl being intimate with a man wearing sunglasses. They didn't expect the girl to be so vicious despite her beauty. Not only had she seduced the husband of her benefactor who had sponsored her, now that her benefactor was bankrupt, she was seducing another man. She was really despicable. "Young lady, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you shouldn't have done this." That's right. You can't forget your roots. She was kind enough to sponsor you, so she's your benefactor. How can you treat her like this? Young ladies nowadays don't know how to work hard and only know how to be a mistress. I don't know what's wrong with society. Look at her looks. She's a living vixen. Seeing that the crowd was on his side, the middle-aged man became even more arrogant. He grabbed Ji Yuqi's arm and dragged her forward as he scolded, "Gu, come home with me. The child is still waiting to be breastfed. Let me go, I don't know you." Ji Yuqi flew into a rage and kicked the man in the leg. The man was caught off guard and was kicked back several steps, almost falling to the ground. Everyone was pointing at Ji Yuqi, but no one stepped forward to help her. Some nosy people even took out their phones or cameras to take pictures. She looked anxious and kept saying, I really didn't do it. I don't know him at all. B*TCH, I originally wanted to let you off for the sake of our past relationship, but I didn't expect you to not even care about the child. I'm going to destroy you." The middle-aged man's eyes were red with anger and his cheeks were distorted. He pulled out a glass bottle from somewhere. The bottle was filled with a transparent liquid. He quickly pulled out the stopper and splashed the liquid on Ji-Yuchi's face. Ji-Yuchi looked flustered, but in fact, she had been staring at his hands for a long time. When he pulled out the glass bottle, she was already prepared to dodge. But she didn't expect that the moment she dodged, a figure would quickly pounce on her. He used his back to block her and hugged her as they dodged quickly. The middle-aged man splashed empty air. Most of the liquid spilled on the ground, and a small part splashed on Shunja's back. His coat immediately sizzled and smoked. Soon, a small hole was burned. Ah, sulfuric acid. Screams resounded through the sky. The crowd frantically fled. Some people were knocked to the ground. Children were squeezed and crying. The people who were initially in a circle dispersed in an instant. They were afraid that the middle-aged man would throw sulfuric acid again and endanger themselves. However, this worry was unnecessary. The middle-aged man was quickly surrounded by 2 security guards. They forcibly restrained him and brought him to the security room. Aja, Ji-Yuchi didn't have the mood to pay attention to that side. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. She clumsily pulled at his clothes and said incoherently, "Quick, take off your coat. Water, fountain, quick, jump into the fountain. Don't panic, I'm fine." Shunja comforted her while quickly taking off his coat. The sulfuric acid on his coat was still corroding his clothes. His white shirt had already been burned into a small black spot. Ji-Yuchi anxiously lifted up his shirt and repeatedly checked to make sure that his skin wasn't injured. Her legs went soft, and she almost collapsed to the ground. He quickly turned around and held her in his arms. She tightly hugged his waist. Her tears fell like rain. "You scare me to death. Why did you rush over? If anything happened to you, I don't want to live anymore." These words circled around the tip of her tongue. In the end, she swallowed them back down. She couldn't easily say such words. She had a heavy responsibility on her shoulders. She didn't only have Shunja, but also her father and Aon. Ji-Yuchi had never been so weak. She lay in his arms and burst into tears. The people around thought that she was afraid. Only Shunja knew that she was worried about him. He hugged her tightly. He couldn't wait to rub her into his body. The thrilling scene just now made his blood turn cold. He gently stroked her hair and comforted her softly. The crowd around them came and went. There were constantly people who stopped to look at them curiously. There were also people who secretly hid at the side and used their phones to record the entire scene. Shunja didn't care. He focused all his energy on the person in his arms. He tightly protected her and let her cry and vent on his chest. After a few minutes, Ji-Yuchi barely managed to control her emotions. She raised her head with tears on her face and sobbed, "Don't do that again. I don't want you to get hurt." Shunja gently wiped the tears on her cheeks with his fingers and comforted her with a good temper. "And listen to our Chi-Chi in the future." Ji-Yuchi's cheeks puffed up. She said unhappily, "You're always coaxing me. If there's danger next time, you'll jump out and block it for me." This was her Shunja. Whenever there was danger, he would always block in front of her. Shunja's eyes curved slightly. It was just like a spring breeze, warm and gentle. He pinched her perky little nose lovingly and chuckled softly. "Since you understand, why are you still forcing me to do something impossible? Chi-Chi, don't deliberately send me away in the future." As smart as he was, how could he not see that she had already known that danger was approaching and had deliberately sent him away? He left in front of her as she wished. However, he didn't go far. When he saw that someone was trying to harm her, he rushed up without hesitation. Ji-Yuchi's heart trembled. The words she wanted to say were stuck in her throat. She stared at his extraordinarily handsome face and his serious and determined gaze. She had no reason to reject him. She could only secretly decide that she would never let Chen Tingfang and the others hurt Shunja. A security guard led 2 policemen to them. One of the policemen said, "You 2 are the victims, right? Please follow us to the police station to make a statement." Shunja nodded. He naturally held Ji-Yuchi's hand and followed them into the police car. The middle-aged man was also sitting in the police car. His hands were handcuffed. When he saw Ji-Yuchi, he opened his mouth and scolded her. Words such as slut and vixen were simply unbearable. Shunja's gaze turned cold. He ignored the presence of the police and punched the man's cheek. The man's mouth immediately swelled up, and he even spat out a bloody tooth. He opened his bloody mouth and shouted in exasperation, "Police comrade, I want to sue him for intentional injury. Hurry up and arrest him." Shunja glanced at him expressionlessly. He slowly adjusted his sleeves and said indifferently, "If you want to sue me, go ahead. I'll accompany you to the end." "Police comrade, he's so arrogant. Why aren't you arresting him?" The middle-aged man opened his bloody mouth and roared. The two policemen's eyes were sharp. They could see that the handsome man in front of them was not to be trifled with. Moreover, he was almost splashed with sulfuric acid. It was normal for him to vent his anger in a bad mood. Therefore, they only gave a simple warning and did not make things difficult for Shunja. The middle-aged man's name was Wang Wei. When he was taking the statement, he insisted that Ji came from a poor family and was a village girl who was admitted to university with his and his ex-wife's financial support. He also said that Ji seduced him and caused him to divorce his ex-wife, and so on. His spittle flew everywhere as he spoke with righteous indignation about Ji heartlessness. He said that after he went bankrupt, she abandoned her son who was just 6 months old and hooked up with a new sugar daddy. When he said this, he glared fiercely at Shunja. Shunja did not even bother to pay attention to him. He described the situation in a clear and orderly manner to the other policemen. Shunja's ability to express himself was very strong. With just a few words, he described the crisis situation vividly. Even the policeman who was taking the statement for him could feel the urgency and danger at that time. Ji also described the situation in detail. She said that she did not know Wang Wei at all. He rushed up to her like a madman and scolded her. Then he took out sulfuric acid. After some investigation, the police confirmed Ji identity and confirmed that she did not have any contact with Wang Wei. After the statement was taken, she could leave. When Ji left the police station, she turned back to look at Wang Wei, who was still being interrogated. A thick haze appeared in her eyes. In her previous life, it was this man who pretended to be crazy and splashed sulfuric acid on her cheeks. At that time, she subconsciously used her arms to block it. Her face was not injured, but a few drops of sulfuric acid splashed on her eyes, causing her to lose her sight and her arms to be severely burned. Later, it was Shunja who transplanted his eyes to her. Awesome novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 868. The operation was a success, and she could see again. However, she had been kept in the dark about how much Shunja had sacrificed for her. She happily accepted Jiang Tianhao's proposal and threw Shunja to the back of her mind. She happily prepared for her wedding. The day before the wedding, Aze came to her and handed her the aquamarine necklace, saying that it was Shunja's wedding gift. She asked about Shunja's recent situation, and Aze said that Shunja had been in a car accident and had lost his sight. She was such a fool that she actually believed Aze's words. Then she held Jiang Tianhao's hand without any psychological burden and walked down the aisle. It wasn't until the wedding ended that she saw Shun just sitting alone in the last row, looking in her direction with unfocused eyes. Ji heart felt like it had been hit by a hammer when she thought about what had happened in her previous life. It was so painful that she couldn't breathe. She held the arm of the person beside her tightly, and tears flowed out of her eyes uncontrollably. Shun just sensed that something was wrong with her. He put his arm around her waist and leaned into his embrace. "Don't be afraid, Chi-Chi. I'm here for you. Don't be afraid. I'm here for you." When she was most afraid, he would always appear by her side and shelter her from the wind and rain. How blind must she have been in her previous life to not be able to see his love and be fooled by Jiang Tianhao's illusion? Soon, the police found out that Wang Wei had indeed sponsored a poor university student. That girl was called Li Yan. Because of Li Yan's intervention, he divorced his ex-wife and married her. However, after his company went bankrupt, Li Yan ran away with another man, so Wang Wei was greatly affected. He had some mental problems and often cursed young women on the road. Unexpectedly, His behavior escalated this time, and he used sulfuric acid to hurt innocent people. In the G family's living room, Ji Yuqi stared expressionlessly at the police officer sitting opposite her. So, the doctor said that Wang Wei has mental problems. Even if he deliberately hurt someone, he doesn't have to bear legal responsibility? The policeman nodded apologetically. Yes, Miss G, this is the law. Originally, his guardian had to bear the responsibility, but after he divorced his ex-wife, there was only a half-year-old son left at home. There was no guardian at all, so he could only be transferred to a mental hospital for treatment. Ji Yuqi lowered her eyes slightly. This situation was exactly the same as in her previous life. Even if she intentionally hurt someone, she could still avoid jail. At that time, she really thought it was an accident and stupidly didn't pursue the matter. This time, she wouldn't be so merciful. She was silent for a while before she slowly said, I understand. Thank you for making the trip. You're welcome. This is what I should do. The police officer stood up and politely bid farewell to everyone present. Ji Yuqi personally walked him to the door. After he left, Ji Bowen angrily slapped the table. Chi-Chi suffered such a huge shock for nothing. This is too despicable. That kind of scum should be locked up in jail. Ji Yuqi inadvertently glanced at Chen Tingfang and caught the flash of smugness in her eyes. She said gently, Dad, don't be angry. It's a good thing that I'm fine. Speaking of which, that person is quite pitiful. Ji Bowen's heart ached. Chi-Chi, you're just too kind. If Shunja didn't rush out to save you, you would have been. Sigh, what's wrong with society now? It's a mess. Even walking on the streets can lead to accidents. Dad won't dare to let you go out in the future. Ji Yuqi originally wanted to hide Shunja's identity, but she didn't expect that when he rushed over to save her, his sunglasses would fall to the ground. In addition, the video of them being attacked was uploaded to the internet. His identity was exposed, so everyone in the Ji family knew that it was Shunja who saved Yuqi. Chen Tingfang also knew that she had been deceived by Ji Yuqi. In addition, she didn't manage to disfigure her as she wished. Chen Tingfang was so angry that she almost broke her silver teeth. Fortunately, she made the right arrangements. That idiot Wang Wei was transferred to a mental hospital and wouldn't rat her out. She really didn't understand why Ji Yuqi was so lucky that even someone like young Master Shun would help her. When she compared Yi Zissou to her, she felt even more resentful. Why didn't her daughter live up to her expectations and find a decent son-in-law for her? Chen Tingfang was still sulking. Ji Yuqi obediently comforted her father. The father and daughter talked for a while more. Ji Bowen asked his daughter to go upstairs to rest and recuperate. Ji Yuqi obediently went upstairs. When she returned to her room, the smile on her face disappeared, leaving only a bone-chilling coldness. She dialed a number and said indifferently, Help me do something. She didn't know if Wang Wei was lucky or unlucky. The mental hospital he was about to be sent to was the same mental hospital that Su Yanqing was in. Ha! What awaited him ahead was a fate worse than death. One day, he would feel that prison was much better than a mental hospital. Under the gentle sunlight, Ji Yuqi's eyes were as cold as ice, and the arc at the corners of her mouth was ghastly and terrifying. She was like a malicious spirit from hell, causing one's heart to tremble. There was a knock on the door. Come in. She turned around with a faint smile on her face. Chi-Chi, the man's voice was urgent. His chest rose and fell rapidly, and there was great fear in his deep eyes. Ji Yuqi was stunned. Tang Feng. Before she could finish speaking, he had already walked over quickly and pulled her into his arms. His arms held her tightly, and he wanted to squeeze her into his body. Chi-Chi, it's good that you're fine. I rushed over as soon as I heard that something happened to you. His voice was low and hoarse, and there was a trace of panic in it. Tang Feng. She couldn't be cruel to this man who grew up with her. She sighed, patted his back, and said gently, I'm fine. Tang Feng, can you let go of me? I won't let go. I won't let go anymore. Tang Feng's hoarse voice was like sandpaper rubbing against each other. For the first time, someone as arrogant and calm as him showed panic. Chi-Chi, don't leave me. Ji Yuqi's lips moved a few times. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She only said dryly, "Tang Feng, don't be like this." During this period, Tang Feng had been looking for all kinds of reasons to get close to her. She wasn't a fool. She could tell that he wanted to pursue her, but she couldn't reciprocate his feelings. Tang Feng suddenly let go of her. His dark eyes looked at her deeply. Then he grabbed her arm and walked out quickly. She was dragged by him and passively followed him. She asked anxiously, "Where are you taking me?" He was silent and only cared about dragging her. Soon, she knew the answer. He dragged her to the door of the study and knocked. "Tang Feng, what's the matter?" Ji Bowen looked at the young man who walked into the study in surprise. His handsome face was solemn, and he was still holding Yuqi's hand. Tang Feng tightened his grip on Yuqi's hand. He looked at Ji Bowen firmly and said seriously and sincerely, "Uncle Ji, I want to marry Yuqi. Please agree." Ji Bowen was stunned. Ji Yuqi was speechless. Ji Bowen coughed. "Tang Feng, do you know what you're saying?" "Uncle Ji, I'm serious. I want to marry Yuqi," Tang Feng said. He looked at Ji Yuqi with a gentle gaze. "I love her. I will love her for the rest of my life. So, please agree to let Yuqi marry me." Ji Bowen frowned slightly. He could tell that Tang Feng was telling the truth, but he had not forgotten what Yuqi had said. Yuqi said that she did not like Tang Feng. Of course, he could not treat her marriage as a joke. Ji Yuqi could tell that her father was in a difficult position. She quickly said, "Brother Tang Feng, I can't marry you." His burning heart was suddenly splashed with a bucket of cold water. His body stiffened, and his pupils constricted. "Why?" She bit her lip and met his gaze calmly. "Brother Tang Feng, I've always treated you as my brother." "Brother Tang Feng, I'm sorry." Tang Feng's face immediately darkened. His deep black eyes were surging with a violent storm. He squeezed a few words out of his teeth. "You like Gu Fifan?" She shook her head. "No." "Who is that?" His voice sounded like it came from his chest. It was low and carried a dull pain. Ji Yuqi pursed her lips. She did not want to push Shenju out at this time, so she shook her head. "No one, Brother Tang Feng. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It had nothing to do with anyone else." It was just that she did not like him. Tang Feng's face was pale. He felt as if someone had stabbed a dagger into his heart. It was so painful that he was about to suffocate. Even if he clenched his fists, he could not suppress the bone-chilling pain. One wrong step led to many wrong steps. "Tang Feng, you push your baby out with your own hands. Now, she doesn't love you anymore." Outside the window, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. Thunder rumbled, and raindrops the size of beans fell to the ground. Gradually, the raindrops became denser and denser, and soon formed a curtain of rain in front of the window. The summer rain came as it wished. The sky was terrifyingly dark, just like his mood at this time. Tang Feng pushed away the servant who was holding the umbrella and walked into the rain. The pouring rain soon drenched him. His wet black hair stuck to his forehead. Soon, his vision was blurred. The rain kept flowing down his cheeks. He touched the rain in front of his eyes, stepped on the puddles on the ground expressionlessly, and walked toward his car. Ji Yuqi stood outside the balcony and looked at the blurred back in the rain. She pinched her fingers into her palm and said softly, "Brother Tang Feng, don't blame me. It's better to end the pain quickly than to prolong the pain." Her heart was so small. She gave it all to Shenju and could not give it to another man. The rain poured down until late at night. Outside the window, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The people in the house were haunted by nightmares. The spacious hallway was deathly silent. A ghostly figure drifted through the hallway. Ji Yuqi happily chased after him, loudly calling out "Shenju." He stiffly turned his head. On his jade-like handsome face, his eye sockets were dark, and two streams of blood flowed from the corners of his eyes. His voice was as dry as a withered plant as he said, "Don't marry him. Come and see." Songshu 566. Chapter 869. The Eyes. "I want to turn the eyes to you." Ji Yuqi was drowning in despair. and she couldn't break free no matter how hard she tried. She suddenly woke up from the nightmare and sat up, gasping for air. Her whole body was drenched, as if she had been fished out of the water. Unknowingly, her cheeks were already covered in tears, and the tears mixed with sweat dripped down. She covered her face with both hands and cried bitterly. Her mournful cries echoed in the room, and mixed with the sound of the rain outside the window, it became even more desolate. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps broke the desolation. A black figure slowly walked over from the window. Ji suddenly raised her head, her eyes still teary, and looked at the black figure warily. Her right hand quickly reached for the dagger under the pillow, and she said sternly, "Who are you?" The black figure stopped in his tracks, and was silent for a moment, and said gently, "Chi, don't be afraid, it's me." It was actually Gu Fifan. Ji widened her eyes in disbelief, and quickly turned on the light. The soft light sprinkled in the room, and the man who was only 8 or 9 steps away from her was completely drenched. The wet hair on his forehead was stuck to his forehead, and the water droplets slid down his thin face and straight nose. His face was pale, and his eyes were deep, and his whole body exuded a decadent and embarrassed beauty. Every step he took, he left a puddle of water on the floor. She could imagine how badly he was drenched by the night rain. Ji took the coat and put it on, wrapping herself up tightly, and looked at him with a frown. "What do you mean by breaking into my bedroom in the middle of the night?" She had really underestimated him. He could actually avoid the security system and break in without anyone noticing. Gu Fifan didn't answer, and he approached her step by step, his whole body exuding a cold aura. She subconsciously stepped back, and her frown deepened. "Gu Fifan, what are you?" Before she could finish her words, a pair of slender arms suddenly pulled her into an embrace. Her warm and soft body was pressed against his wet chest, and his cold lips suddenly blocked her lips. He was like a wild beast. His actions were fierce and violent, as if he wanted to prove her existence, biting her over and over again. His arms were like an iron clamp around her waist, and her chest was squeezed so tightly that she almost couldn't breathe. She flew into a rage out of humiliation and bit his tongue. Her mouth was instantly filled with the taste of blood. She then forcefully punched his abdomen. He was in so much pain that he finally let go of her. Slap! A ruthless slap landed on his cheek. "Gu Fifan, you lunatic!" Ji was so angry that his eyes were blazing. Because of this slap, Gu Fifan's pale cheeks became a little rosy. He stared at the little girl in front of him who had flown into a rage out of humiliation, and his thin lips curved into a bitter smile. "From the moment I fell in love with you, I went crazy." He was the eldest young master of the Gu family, and he was the Prince Charming pursued by countless women. However, he had fallen in love with this heartless woman. When he saw on the internet that she was in danger, his heart almost stopped beating. When he saw her crying in Shunja's arms, his eyes were filled with jealousy and anger. He finally knew that it wasn't that she didn't have a heart, but that she had given it all to Shunja. He really wanted to be the unrestrained eldest young master of the Gu family, who didn't show any mercy to any woman, but he couldn't control himself. He couldn't even wait until tomorrow to see her again. He braved the rain, climbed over her window, and barged into her bedroom like a lunatic. His arms tightened around her shoulders, and his eyes were burning with rage. He gritted his teeth and said, "You love Shunja, don't you? If he can do it, I can do it too. How am I worse than him? Why can't you love me?" He had been driven crazy by anger and jealousy, and his usual calmness and rationality had completely disappeared. Ji suddenly realized that he really loved her, and he loved her so deeply. She didn't know how to deal with this situation and could only try to ease his emotions. She quietly looked at his eyes and said gently, "Fifan, you're very good. Many girls like you. You'll definitely be able to find a girl who suits you better than me. I only want you." Gu Fifan was as domineering as a king, and the strong possessiveness in his eyes frightened her. She sighed helplessly in her heart. "Fifan, can you be more rational? Her gaze was gentle and helpless, as if she was looking at an unreasonable child. Gu Fifin's chest was filled with a strong sense of annoyance, and there was a faint impulse in his heart that made him want to rush forward, press her under his body, and take her for himself. Because of this thought, the arm that was holding her trembled slightly. His deep eyes gradually turned red, and the imprisoned beast in his body was about to break out. Ji Yuqi's soft fingers gently covered the back of his hand, and she said gently, "Your clothes are all wet. I'll go get a set of my brother's clothes for you. Take a seat first." Her gentle voice was like a clear spring, and it instantly extinguished the evil fire in Gu Fifin's heart. He quickly retracted his hands from her shoulders and felt guilty for having such thoughts. His sexy lips pursed, and his voice was hoarse. Okay. Although Ji Yunhan was already 7 meters tall, his clothes were still a little comical when worn by Gu Fifin, who was 8 meters tall. After changing his clothes and drying his hair, Gu Fifin seemed to have turned back into that suave young master. He glanced at Ji Yuqi, who had a strange expression on her face, and raised his eyebrows. "Laugh if you want, don't hold it in." Ji Yuqi burst out laughing. Afraid that he would be annoyed, she comforted him. "Actually, it's not that bad." Gu Fifin curved his lips and suddenly strode towards her. Her eyes narrowed, and her right foot moved. This small, vigilant action made him feel uncomfortable, and he stopped in his tracks, looking at her with deep eyes. "Protect yourself in the future, and don't use yourself as bait anymore. If you have any difficulties, feel free to look for me." Ji Yuqi was slightly stunned, and her lips quickly curved into a faint smile. Okay." He looked at her deeply, and his voice was deep. "I'm leaving. Have a good rest." She felt as if a bottle of mixed feelings had been knocked over in her heart. She watched as he left through the window. Unknowingly, the rain had stopped, and a few bright stars appeared in the sky after the rain. That dark figure ran quickly on the balcony, and soon disappeared from the courtyard. The moon was bright, and the stars were sparse. The air was mixed with the fragrance of plants and flowers. It was quiet and lost, as if she had just had an unrealistic dream. For the next period of time, both Tang Feng and Gu Fifin disappeared from Ji Yuqi's life. She thought that they had given up, and she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In City Mental Hospital, a young man wearing glasses and wearing a white coat with a fountain pen in his coat pocket was meticulously leading 2 nurses on a ward round with his hands behind his back. A good-looking nurse opened the small window above the ward door and looked at the man who was sitting by the bed in a daze. She said, "Dr. Ouyang, this is the patient that the police transferred here today. His name is Wang Wei, and he has a strong tendency to violence. The sulfuric acid incident that caused a sensation in Ing City a few days ago was committed by him." Ouyang soon nodded slightly, opened the door, and stared at Wang Wei expressionlessly. He said coldly, "Number 33, I'm your doctor in charge. From now on, please stay here and receive your treatment quietly." Wang Wei, who had been keeping his head down, suddenly raised his head and laughed foolishly. "I'm not mentally ill." Ouyang Su glanced at him indifferently, and then signaled the nurse to throw a blue and white hospital gown onto his bed. When the 3 of them turned to leave, Ouyang Su said indifferently, "Everyone who comes in has said the same thing. Remember, you're a mental patient here. Other than cooperating with the doctor, there's no other way. Otherwise, you'll go back to prison." Wang Wei's body stiffened. He thought that he had disguised himself well, but a complicated emotion quickly flashed through his confused eyes. He knew that Ouyang Su must have seen through his act of pretending to be ill. After all, there were a lot of patients like him in the mental hospital. In order to escape the punishment of the law, they pretended to be mentally ill. After being exposed by Ouyang Su, Wang Wei had been very nervous. He was worried that Ouyang Su would tell the police that he was pretending to be ill. But for the next few days, Ouyang Su treated him like an ordinary mental patient with an indifferent attitude. Only then did Wang Wei feel relieved. On the 4th day, Wang Wei went to the activity room to participate in the entertainment activities as usual. The so-called entertainment activities were actually watching TV, playing table tennis, or playing chess under the care of the nurse. Every time, he would sit in the corner and watch TV with his neck up. Although he didn't like the program that was being played every time, he still stared at the TV. If he had nothing to do and lived in a muddle-headed way, he might really go crazy. In a not-so-quiet activity room, a woman's painful scream suddenly rang out. The room was full of people, but no one seemed to have heard the scream that got louder and louder. Even a nurse stood in the same place with an indifferent face, motionless. The woman's scream echoed in his ears. Wang Wei stood up and looked for the source of the sound. When he stepped out of the activity room door, he saw in the corner of the stairs, two men in hospital gowns were humiliating a woman. One of the men held down the woman's arm, and the other man with a scar on his face was on top of the woman. He kept moving his waist, and the air was filled with an obscene atmosphere. His hands were still forcefully strangling the woman's neck. The woman's cries were getting weaker and weaker, and the strength of her struggle was getting weaker and weaker. She was like a fish on the verge of death, instinctively opening her mouth to breathe hard. Her dim eyes were wide open, and her eyeballs seemed to be about to jump out of their sockets. Coupled with her disfigured face, it was creepy to see her like this. Wang Wei's back was covered with a layer of cold sweat, and he unconsciously clenched his fingers. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded in his ears. That woman is called Su Yanqing. You may have heard of her. A few months ago, she was still the big miss of the Black Flame sect. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 870. Wang Wei's throat tightened. Of course, he had heard of Su Yanqing's murder case. He liked to pay attention to current affairs, so how could he not have heard of it? He even saw her photo in the newspaper. She was a beautiful and proud woman. He didn't expect her to become like this. He turned his head in a daze and saw Ouyang Su standing beside him. He mumbled, "Aren't you going to save her?" Su Yanqing was about to be strangled to death. Ouyang Su's face was indifferent. He coldly said, Su Yanqing once condoned her subordinates to rape more than 10 prostitutes. This is her retribution. Why should I save her? Wang Wei was agitated. He suddenly shouted, "You're a doctor." Ouyang Su coldly stared at him. His gaze was as cold as a poisonous snake's. "I'm a doctor, so I'm only responsible for things within the scope of my job." Wang Wei clenched his teeth. The fake confusion in his eyes had completely disappeared, leaving only the flames of anger. He had accused Ouyang Su of being irresponsible, but he had never thought of rushing up to save Su Yanqing himself, because he was afraid of provoking those two lunatics. Ouyang Su seemed to have seen through his thoughts. He sneered and shook his head. He coldly said, "It seems that you haven't adapted to your identity." Wang Wei was startled. His tense body slowly relaxed. The anger in his eyes also quickly faded. Once again, he was a loss. He no longer looked at Ouyang Su or Su Yanqing. He turned around and returned to the activity room. Ouyang Su pushed up his glasses to cover the coldness in his eyes. The corner of his lips curled up in a mocking smile. At this time, the man on top of Su Yanqing's body quickly moved. He reached his peak and finally let go of Su Yanqing's neck. Su Yanqing had already fainted. She was lying on the ground, allowing the other man to start a new round of abuse. Ouyang Su looked away as if he saw something dirty. He waved his hand and called 2 nurses. They pulled the 2 men away and sent Su Yanqing back to the ward. After all, their purpose was not to let her die easily, but to let her live in pain. In front of the hospital building, there was a garden with green trees and fragrant flowers. Every day, Wang Wei would wander around here for a while. He liked to sit on a bench under the shade of a tree and stare at the tall courtyard wall, imagining what his eldest daughter and youngest son were doing right now. A tall and straight figure quietly stood beside him. His handsome face, which seemed to be carved out of ice and snow, exuded a chilling aura. He coldly said, "Someone once committed suicide by jumping off a building from the 6th floor. His brain was ruptured and his flesh was badly mangled. His corpse is lying right in front of where you are sitting." Wang Wei suddenly felt a chill all over his body. He couldn't help but imagine a bloody scene. He seemed to see that person lying at his feet. He panicked and retracted his feet, but immediately straightened his body to hide his fear. Ouyang Su's deep and serene eyes stared ahead as he lightly said, "That man is the son of an official. He raped and killed a 17-year-old girl. In order to escape the punishment of the law, his father used his connections to forge a medical record and sent him here. In the beginning, his life was very relaxed. Later on, he really had a mental problem. He suffered from persecutory paranoia. He always suspected that someone was out to harm him. He even said that the girl's ghost had returned to take his life. Finally, one day, he went completely crazy and jumped from the 6th floor. It was said that before he jumped, he even shouted, 'I'll return you my life. I'll return it to you.' He casually recounted the story as if he was talking about the weather. However, Wang Wei felt his hair stand on end and goosebumps appeared on his skin. He was originally an atheist, but when he heard this story, his mind couldn't help but imagine the scene of a ghost taking his life. His heart felt waves of fear. Wang Wei forcefully shook his head and cast aside those wild thoughts. He clenched his fists and angrily said, "Dr. Ouyang, what are you trying to do?" Ouyang Su looked at him expressionlessly. His tone was calm, chatting and telling stories. "This is a new treatment method I created." Wang Wei tried hard to suppress the anger in his heart. "I don't need this kind of treatment." After shouting, he ran away in a sorry state. Ouyang Su's cold voice came from behind him. "I'm your attending doctor. You must follow my treatment plan. Of course, you can also choose to return to prison." Wang Wei's back stiffened for a second. Then, he walked away without looking back. The next day, Ouyang Su did his usual ward rounds. He put his hands in the pockets of his white coat and indifferently looked at Wang Wei, who was lying on the bed. He lightly said, "The patient who used to live here was a young girl in her early 20s. Wang Wei irritably covered his ears. The storytelling treatment had begun again. However, that cold voice still stubbornly drilled into his ears. That girl's father was very rich. He also spoiled her a lot, causing her to develop an arrogant and domineering personality. She and her friends raced and killed a couple. After the hit and run, her father found someone to take the blame for her and settled the matter. After that, she didn't repent at all. Instead, she went from bad to worse. She and her friends kidnapped a poor girl and tortured her to death. The reason was that the poor girl had taught her a lesson. After the murder, the girl's father sent her to this hospital in order to save her life. The girl's personality was irritable, and she was not popular. Gradually, a group of people bullied her. She began to shrink back and become paranoid. She didn't dare to leave the ward. Every day, when she closed her eyes, she would have nightmares. She dreamed of the girl she tortured to death and the couple she killed. Later, she had a mental breakdown. She snatched the fountain pen from my pocket and used it to pierce her own throat. Blood sprayed everywhere. Even the ceiling was dyed red. Ouyang Su's voice suddenly became gloomy and cold. It was like a bone-piercing cold wind, chilling to the bone. After the girl died, her parents disliked her and were even unwilling to collect her body. They entrusted us to bury her. You see, human emotions are very weak. Even those who love you deeply at first will fear you because of your blood-stained hands. They will hate you and eventually abandon you. Don't say anymore. Don't say anymore. Wang Wei couldn't stand it anymore. He hugged his head and shouted manically. No, what Ouyang Su said was wrong. His children would never dislike him. They would never hate him. The one they loved the most was their father. Ouyang Su's lips curled up coldly. He said in a deep voice, "Little Wang, the patient's mania is acting up. Bring me a tranquilizer." After the nurse who was guarding outside the ward heard this, she immediately took out a syringe from her pocket. The syringe was already half filled with a transparent liquid. Wang Wei subconsciously retreated. He angrily and frantically shouted, "Don't come over. I'm normal. I don't need a tranquilizer." Ouyang Su sneered. "All patients don't like injections. Little Wang, give me the syringe." He stretched out his right hand. The nurse obediently placed the syringe in his hand. He held the syringe and strode over. Before Wang Wei could see his movements clearly, Yang-su had already grabbed his arm. He lifted the syringe, and the liquid in the syringe was slowly injected into his body. The drug's effect was very fast. In just a few seconds, he felt his eyelids grow heavy. He wanted to sleep. He forced himself to open his eyes and stared at Yang-su. Yang-su said indifferently, "Little Wang, prepare for the operation." "Yes." Little Wang responded and quickly left. Wang Wei bit the tip of his tongue. The sharp pain allowed his mind to regain a trace of clarity. He watched helplessly as he was pushed into the operating room. The snow-white walls, the snow-white sheets, and the unpleasant smell of medicine made him panic. What do you want to do?" Wang Wei stared at Yang-su and squeezed out a few words. Yang-su put on a pair of rubber gloves and held a shiny scalpel in his hand. He approached him step by step and said in a calm tone, "In 1949, the psychiatrist Moniz, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, invented an operation. The full name is bilateral prefrontal lobe lobotomy. It can reduce the impulsive and aggressive behavior of patients with mania and make them docile. Oh, of course, there are side effects. It will make you lose your memory and many functions. To be precise, you'll be no different for a walking corpse." As he spoke, he stroked Wang Wei's head as if he was looking for a place to cut. He calmly said, "As long as the scalp is cut open, the skull is opened, and the prefrontal lobe is removed. The brain itself has no sensory neurons, so you won't feel any pain. When you wake up from your sleep, you'll forget all those troublesome things. What a wonderful thing that would be." His fingers stroked Wang Wei's head as if he was stroking a fine piece of art. His low voice slowly sounded, but it made Wang Wei extremely afraid. His legs trembled, his eyes widened in horror, and his lips trembled. No, I don't want to do the operation." The cold scalpel gently rubbed against his head. Yang-su's voice was like the devil's voice from hell, cruel and cold-blooded. "Do you think that when you walk into this hospital, into my operating room, you can still do whatever you want?" Yang-su was like a devil who killed without spilling blood, using words to disturb people's minds. Wang Wei was terrified to the extreme, and even the tranquilizer couldn't control him. His hands tightly grasped the bedsheet, and he crazily roared, "Let me go, please let me go, I can give you anything you want." Yang-su raised his eyebrows. "You're just a toy in my hands. What else can you give me?" Wang Wei's body stiffened, but he quickly said anxiously, Money, I can give you money." Yang-su sneered, "I heard that you're bankrupt. How much money can you have? Keep the money and buy yourself a coffin." Yes, I have a lot of money." Wang Wei seemed to realize that there was a problem with this sentence, so he quickly changed his words. "As long as you let me go, I can give you 100,000. 100,000 for an ordinary doctor was already very tempting. However, Yang-su didn't put in his eyes at all. His tone was indifferent. "Sorry, compared to 100,000, I'm more interested in your brain." Losing his memory, losing his personality, and losing the ability to think, all of these made Wang Wei feel terrified. He didn't want to be a walking corpse. He had to find a way to escape from this terrifying mental hospital. He clenched his fists and eagerly negotiated with Yang-su. 200,000. I'll give you 200,000. Yang-su patted his forehead with the scalpel and lightly said, 200,000. It's enough for you to change a kidney and live for 10 more years. Removing the frontal lobe will only make you lose the ability to think. It's good to be alive. Why waste money?" Wang Wei's eyes widened in shock. How did you know?" "Know what? Know that you have uremia and only have 5 years to live? Or know that you were actually bribed, and in order to leave 300,000 for the child, you poured sulfuric acid? Come and see." Songshu 566. Chapter 871. You know everything? Who the hell are you? Wang Wei's back was drenched in cold sweat. He looked up at the man standing beside him. He was dressed in white, and his handsome face was expressionless. He was like an ice sculpture, and his whole body was permeated with coldness. Yang-su's lips curved into a sly smile. "I know everything about every prisoner who enters the hospital. Prisoners are prisoners. Even if they escape the punishment of the law, They can't escape my punishment." His words were like a sharp sword, ruthlessly stabbing into Wang Wei's heart. Wang Wei's eyes widened in horror, and his body couldn't help but tremble. His mind couldn't help but recall the story he once told. In a flash, he suddenly understood something. He struggled to move his body to the other side of the operating bed and shouted, "It's you, the one who jumped off the building, and the one who committed suicide with a pen. They were all killed by you." "Well, not bad. You're smart. I'm a psychiatrist, and I'm very good at messing with their minds and making them collapse. In fact, the case I'm most proud of was punishing a perverted ogre. He not only raped and killed a girl, but also dismembered her body to stew soup. Later, he bit off his own wrist and swallowed it mouthful by mouthful. He bled to death. Don't you think it's very interesting? Pervert, devil, stay away from me." Perhaps it was because of extreme panic, or perhaps because the drug's effect had worn off, but Wang Wei's hands and feet were able to move. He turned over and jumped out of the bed, running like the wind toward the door. Ouyang Su smiled coldly. He slightly raised his right hand, and the scalpel in his hand flew over Wang Wei's head and heavily inserted into the door. Wang Wei stopped in shock. He only felt a chill on his scalp. He reached out to touch it, and a handful of hair fell down. If Ouyang Su had thrown the scalpel a little lower, half of his head would have been cut off. Wang Wei was so scared that his legs went soft, and he couldn't stop trembling. The door was only a few steps away from him, but he couldn't walk over. The sound of footsteps came closer and closer. The tall white figure was getting closer and closer. The gloomy voice sounded like it came from hell. "Run, why don't you run?" Wang Wei fell to the ground. He knelt on the ground with his hands on the ground and cried bitterly. "I beg you, let me go. I didn't mean it. I really didn't mean it. I just wanted to leave a sum of money for my child before I die. I was wrong. I shouldn't have harmed others. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me." Ouyang Su pulled the scalpel from the door, casually played with it, and lightly said, "Who ordered you?" "I don't know. It was a man who contacted me. I don't even know how he found me," Wang Wei said incoherently. The man was very tall. When he saw me, he was wearing a black coat and black sunglasses. He gave me a sum of money and a bottle of sulfuric acid. He said that after the mission was completed, he would give me another 200,000 yuan. Before he left, he gave me a photo of Ji Yuqi. He said that he would tell me the time and place of the operation. And I don't know anything else. Ouyang Su took out a photo from his pocket and put it in front of him. "Is it this man?" Yes. It's him. He also said that I won't go to jail because of this. He'll find a way to arrange for me to be sent to a mental hospital. I can live comfortably for the next 5 years, and he'll arrange for my children to visit me." Wang Wei seemed to be showing his loyalty, and he told him all the details he knew. Ouyang Su looked away and said, "Did he mention the title of Mrs. G?" Wang Wei thought for a bit and shook his head. "No." Ouyang Su's face was cold as he said with certainty, "He did. You heard him mention it when he was on the phone." Wang Wei nodded. Yes. I heard it. I definitely heard it." Ouyang Su curled his lips. "Very good. You know what to say in court, right?" I know. Law. Court? What? Do you want to stay here and have your head cut by me, or pierce your throat with a pin, or jump off a building to commit suicide? No. I'd rather go to jail." Wang Wei's tense muscles relaxed. He had finally escaped from the devil. Ouyang Su sneered. "It's good that you understand. You won't have a good ending if you fall into my hands." Wang Wei desperately nodded his head, indicating that he understood. His flattery was obvious. Ouyang Su stared at him coldly. "If anyone finds out about me, I can guarantee that your daughter and son will be sent to a mental hospital for the rest of their lives. I didn't hear or see anything. Please don't hurt my children." As long as he escaped, and as long as the children were safe, Wang Wei wouldn't be stupid enough to run into his gun again. It had nothing to do with him how he dealt with the criminals who deserved it. Ouyang Su lifted his chin. "I'm very satisfied that you know what's good for you. You can go out and return to your ward. Remember, don't wander around. If something happens, I can't save you." Wang Wei quickly nodded. He opened the door and carefully walked out. After confirming that the other party wouldn't make things difficult for him, he ran away. The whole corridor echoed with his hurried and panicked footsteps. Ouyang Su closed the door of the operating room, turned around, faced the white curtain, and lightly said, "You can come out now." A woman wearing jeans, a black t-shirt, and black sunglasses slowly walked out from behind the curtain. She chuckled softly and said, "As expected of the devil doctor, you're really good at breaking people's psychological defenses. You flatter me." Ouyang Su lightly glanced at her and handed her the photo in his hand. "This is the photo you gave me. Today, I'll inform the police and tell them that Wang Wei is pretending to be crazy. I think he'll be transferred back to prison soon. Thank you." Ji Yuqi took the photo. The person in the photo was Xiebing. He was wearing a black suit and sunglasses. It turned out that Chun Tingfang had bribed Wang Wei through him. Chun Tingfang, this woman, did things flawlessly. If he didn't find a breakthrough from Wang Wei and dragged her into the water, it would be difficult to catch her foxtail. Ouyang Su didn't look at her. He slowly took off the rubber gloves on his hands. He had a pair of beautiful hands. His white and slender fingers were naturally an artist's hands. However, they were stained with a lot of blood. Ji Yuqi suddenly felt a little regretful. She pondered for a moment and slowly said, "Ouyang, put down the burden and be yourself. You'll be an excellent psychiatrist." Ouyang Su's movement stiffened, but he quickly continued. The pause was very short. If Ji Yuqi hadn't been watching him, she wouldn't have noticed. His voice was very calm. "You know too much." From a moment she came to him and asked him to treat Su Yanqing specially and deliberately target Wang Wei. He knew that this woman understood him and knew his background. Ji Yuqi looked at him seriously. "We're the same kind of people. Hatred made us give up on kindness and correct morals. Therefore, I treat you as a friend. I don't want to see you fall into a desperate situation." Ouyang Su raised his head and looked at her beautiful eyes. In her eyes, he saw his ugly self. He also hated that self. However, once something started, there was no turning back. His expression slightly changed, and he muttered, "Perhaps on that day, everything will end. It might not be a bad thing." Ji Yuqi shook her head and said in a slightly anxious tone, "You don't understand. Your reputation will be ruined, you'll go to jail, and even pay with your life." Ouyang Su's eyes were blank. So what? Death was the best way to end evil. He had used this method to end the evil lives of many people. Ji Yuqi felt sad. He had wanted to stop his actions long ago, but he couldn't control himself. Therefore, he wanted to be stopped by others. He had long hated life. She didn't know how to persuade him. Her legs uncontrollably walked in front of him, and her fingers gently rested on the back of his hand. He numbly allowed her to grab his hand and looked at her calmly. She slowly bloomed a smile and said softly, "Actually, this world is still very beautiful. Although I have hatred in my heart, I also have people I want to protect. I also have people who love me. For them, no matter how difficult it is, I have to live on. Ouyang, you will definitely have such a person too. Ouyang, you're not a god. You can't punish all evil on behalf of the law. You're a human. You'll feel pain, loneliness, and love. Being a person who can cry and laugh is much better than being a god who has no desires." Her voice was gentle and her gaze was clear. It was like a spring breeze that caressed one's face, making one unable to help but sink into it. She lowered her eyes slightly and looked at their overlapping hands. She smiled and said, "Do you feel it? The warmth from a friend?" Her fingertips were cold at first, but after their skin touched for a while, they gradually warmed up. The warmth from her palm was also transmitted to his body. It was like a warm current flowing into his cold heart. He suddenly felt irritated, as if he had been seen through. He flung her hand away and used sharp words to protect himself. "Since you want me to help you, why do you have to be so pretentious?" "Yes, that's why I'm very despicable. I want to use you to achieve my goal, but I also want to persuade you. Actually, you can be as despicable as me. I believe that you have 100 ways to make those criminals who pretend to be crazy admit their sins. Since that's the case, why do you have to harm their lives? Isn't it best for them to go back to prison for the rest of their lives?" She was still smiling, so calm that it made him pale in comparison. He suddenly felt that what she said was very reasonable. He was not a god and could not punish all the sinners, but he could use his ability to make those sinners wake up and receive the punishment they deserved. His expression was still cold, but there was already a fluctuation in his eyes. Ji-Yuchi knew that her words had already aroused his interest, so she did not say anything more. When she turned to leave, her back was facing him. She said one last sentence, "Oh Yang, actually there's always been a person who loves you by your side. If it wasn't because she loves you, she wouldn't have hidden your actions. The pressure and pain she has endured is no less than yours. I think you've noticed it yourself. Cherish her well, and don't let yourself regret it." After saying that, Ji-Yuchi directly opened the door. A delicate and pretty nurse was standing at the door. When she saw her come out, the nurse politely smiled. Ji-Yuchi also smiled at her and said softly, "Little Wang, don't give up on Ouyang. You might be the only sunshine in his life." Add Songshu 566. Chapter 872. Little Wang's eyes widened in shock, and her cheeks quickly turned red. Ji-Yuchi smiled and walked away under her astonished gaze. Ouyang Su, known as the Devil Doctor, was arrested by the police 3 years later on suspicion of murder. The Devil Doctor was the nickname given to him by the media at that time. Little Wang, the nurse, was also arrested at that time. She was suspected of covering up for him. She knew that Ouyang Su used professional skills to induce patients to commit suicide, but she hid it for him for 6 years. At that time, the media speculated that Little Wang was forced. However, Ji-Yuchi felt that it was because of love. Only love could be so tolerant. Ji-Yuchi had been shocked when she'd first seen the case. Ouyang Su seemed ruthless, but he was very emotional. At that time, his sister was raped and killed by the son of an official. The son of an official took advantage of a loophole in the law and falsified medical records, pretending to be mentally ill, and was admitted to a mental hospital. In order to avenge his sister, he worked hard for 3 years before he entered the hospital. Step by step, he drove the son of an official crazy into his death. Since then, Ouyang Su saw through the darkness of society and embarked on the path of punishing criminals who pretended to be mentally ill. The first story he told Wang Wei was that the son of an official who jumped off the building was actually the person who killed his sister. Ouyang Su killed more than 10 people and was finally sentenced to death. Little Wang was also sentenced to 2 years in prison for covering up for him. After his matter was exposed, it caused a huge social reaction. Some people even called for him not to be sentenced to death because everyone who died in his hands deserved it. He had never hurt the innocent. However, the law was ruthless, and he was punished by the law in the end. Ji-Yuchi sympathized with him and felt that it was not worth it for him. So, she spoke out rashly to change his tragic ending. Facing the bright sun, she walked out of the mental hospital and stopped to look at the blue sky. A faint smile rose on her lips. She hoped that her words would have an effect. 3 years later, Ouyang Su became a famous criminal psychologist in the country. When he used his knowledge to solve several major cases, he was hired as a police psychologist to participate in the investigation of major cases, which caused a wave of criminal psychology. In the same year, he married Little Wang and invited Ji-Yuchi and her husband to attend the wedding. During the toast, he specially gave a toast to Ji-Yuchi to thank her for guiding him in the right direction, which caused Shunja to be jealous. This is a story for later, so let's not talk about it for now. Soon, the media revealed that Wang Wei was pretending to be mentally ill. Ji-Yuchi filed a lawsuit against Wang with Ji Bowen's full support. Before the trial started, Chun Tingfang was already anxious. She was worried that Wang Wei would confess the truth. She wanted to visit him in prison to calm him down, but it wasn't convenient for her to appear. Wang Wei had met Xie Bing before, so she couldn't let Xie Bing appear either. After thinking about it, she thought of Wang Wei's ex-wife, Jiang Ling. She planned to use Jiang Ling to threaten Wang Wei. Who would have thought that by the time Xie Bing arrived at Jiang Ling's residence, Jiangling had already escaped with Wang Wei's 2 children. Chen Tingfang was so anxious that her mouth was bubbling. But there was nothing she could do, and she could only resign herself to fate. Xie Bing was even more anxious than her. After all, he was the one who contacted Wang Wei. Although he wore sunglasses and disguised himself, what if Ji Yuqi was already prepared and found him? He was even prepared to assassinate Wang Wei. If Wang Wei dared to expose him, then he would kill Wang Wei through his connections in the prison. But he didn't expect that Shun Zhe was already prepared. Through his connections, he arranged for Wang Wei to be in a separate room and guarded 24 hours a day. Except for the director's approval, no one could come in contact with him. Just as everyone was either sad or happy, nervous or expectant, the first trial started. During the trial, Wang Wei confessed to the fact that he pretended to be mentally ill. During the further trial, he admitted that he was ordered by someone to try to hurt Ji Yuqi with sulfuric acid. Before the trial, Wang Wei's lawyer picked up a few portraits and presented them to the judges. Then, he picked up a portrait and said to the audience, "Judges, presiding judge, the portrait in your hands is based on Wang Wei's description of the person who bribed him. Based on this portrait, we investigated one by one and finally locked onto the target. He is the driver of the Ji family, Xie Bing. Now, I implore you to let Xie Bing appear in court." Xie Bing was brought to court. Of course, he wouldn't admit that he hired someone to kill Wang Wei. At this time, Wang Wei suddenly said, "That day, you found me in my rented apartment and said that you wanted to talk about business. After you left, I found a strand of hair on the sofa. Just in case, I kept that strand of hair. I was afraid that you wouldn't admit it in the end." Xie Bing's pupils suddenly shrank. He knew that he was completely screwed. After the judge warned Wang Wei for his sudden interruption, he said, "The defendant's lawyer, please present evidence to prove that the defendant was ordered to commit the crime." The lawyer took out 2 DNA analysis reports. After the DNA analysis, the hair left by Wang Wei is a complete match with Xie Bing's DNA. It's enough to prove that Xie Bing hired someone to kill Wang Wei. Who knows where Wang Wei got that strand of hair? Maybe he was already prepared to frame me. Xie Bing's face darkened as he tried to argue. The lawyer was already well prepared. He presented evidence to prove that Wang Wei and Xie Bing had no relationship, and there was no reason to frame him. Then, he invited a few witnesses. These people lived in the same building as Wang Wei, and they all said that they saw Xie Bing enter and leave the building wearing sunglasses. Ji Yuqi watched coldly as the lawyer forced Xie Bing into a corner step by step. In fact, the so-called evidence, the hair, and the eyewitnesses were all arranged by her long ago. Xie Bing was too meticulous and didn't leave behind any evidence that could be used against him. Unfortunately, he didn't know and had no way to prove his innocence. In the end, Xie Bing committed the crime of intentional injury for hiring someone to kill Wang Wei and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Although Wang Wei was counted as an accomplice, he was the one who committed the crime. Later, he pretended to be mentally ill and tried to escape the law, so the circumstances were serious, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. After the criminal was escorted out of the court, the reporters swarmed over. After all, this case was complicated and confusing, and it involved the eldest daughter of the Ji family and the eldest young master of the Shun family. One can imagine how much attention there was. On the way to the prison van, Wang Wei suddenly turned to look at Xie Bing and asked curiously, "Xie Bing, you were just ordered by someone, weren't you? I overheard you calling the other party Mrs. Ji on the phone that day. You were following Mrs. Ji's orders to hurt Miss Ji, right? But I'm curious, why didn't you accuse her in court?" His voice was neither loud nor soft, just enough for the reporters to hear clearly. Thus, it immediately caused a commotion. The reporters tried to squeeze into the encirclement and raise their microphones to ask, "Mr. Xie Bing, did you really listen to Mrs. Ji's orders and hire someone to hurt someone? Rumor has it that Mrs. Ji and Miss Ji don't get along. Is that true? Why did Mrs. Ji hire someone to hurt someone? Is it to fight for the Ji family's assets? Mr. Xie Bing, what's your relationship with Mrs. Ji? Why are you protecting her?" Questions and doubts swarmed in, and Xie Bing's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He wanted to punch Wang Wei. He had never talked to Chun Tingfang on the phone in front of Wang Wei. Wang Wei did it on purpose. He wanted to drag Chun Tingfang into it. Xie Bing chose to keep quiet in the face of the media. The police stretched out their arms to block the reporters and said, "Please make way. Don't push." Under the police's obstruction, they finally got into the prison van safely. Xie Bing was furious as he looked at the crowd outside through the glass. If he had known that Chun Tingfang was so troublesome, he wouldn't have taken her job, even if it meant offending Lu Jianfeng. After 2 years in prison, the world would have been turned upside down by the time he got out. There would be no one like him in the underworld. Xie Bing hit the car with his head angrily, which immediately attracted a warning from the police. He leaned against the car gloomily, feeling useless. Because of Wang Wei's words, Chun Tingfang became famous. She was ranked first on the list of the most vicious stepmothers in the rich families. Many secrets were gossiped about, such as how she often abused Ji Yuqi and her brother at home, how she bribed people to kidnap Ji Yunhan, how she hired people to hurt Ji Yuqi, and so on. She became a joke in the upper-class women's circle. Even the upper-class women who used to be close to her would tease her, saying things like, "If you want to do it cleanly and don't leave any evidence behind," or, "Instead of targeting the siblings, why don't you give birth to a son and stabilize your position?" Chun Tingfang was so angry that she vomited blood. Ji Yuqi watched on calmly, expressing that she was enjoying the show. Of course, she was the one who had come up with the most vicious stepmother ranking. Moreover, it had been quoted by the tabloid entertainment magazines and newspapers, and its sales for that period had skyrocketed. Ji Bowen flew into a rage. In front of the whole family, he did not give Chun Tingfang any face and reprimanded her. Chun Tingfang sobbed and pretended to be innocent. "Bowen, that Wang Wei is obviously framing me. Why do you believe a murderer and not me? He doesn't even know you. Why would he frame you?" Ji Bowen threw the newspaper in front of her and said angrily, "Also, how do you explain these things?" Chun Tingfang wiped her tears and said, "Those media are best at catching wind and making groundless accusations. It's not like you don't know. What secrets of the rich families? What scandals of the rich and powerful? Isn't it just to attract everyone's attention?" Ji Bowen was furious and interrupted her. "If you really didn't do it, how could they write such a thing with a nose and eyes? Medicine? Good for you, Chun Tingfang. How could you treat a Han so cruelly? As his father, I was kept in the dark all this time." Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 873. The more he spoke, the angrier he got. He didn't give Chun Tingfang a chance to defend herself and shouted at Ji Yunhan, "Han, tell me, what happened with the drugs?" Ji Yunhan scratched his head and said uncomfortably, "Dad, don't be angry. That incident happened a long time ago. Previously, I met a few friends in the underworld and they drugged my drink. If I didn't wake up, I would have been injected with drugs. I beat those people up and then escaped. That's all." He made up a bunch of nonsense and hid most of the truth. Anyway, Chun Tingfang didn't dare to jump out and expose him. Chun Tingfang quickly said, "Bowen, I really didn't do that. I've always treated Han as my own son. How could he do such a vicious thing?" Ji Yunhan pursed his lips and said coldly, "Suju was the one who did that. I'm curious why Suju would target me. Su Yanqing is Suju's sister. That woman even planted a bomb under his sister's car. I really don't know why the siblings are always going against the Ji family." Ji Bowen also knew about the bomb, but he didn't think too much about it at the time. Now that he thought about what had happened to his son, his face instantly turned ugly. A thought gradually formed in his mind. He suddenly raised his head and stared at Chun Tingfang gloomily. "Your ex-husband, Yi Zhaoxian, was once Su Yanqing's lover. Why was he tortured to death by Su Yanqing? Could it be that he did something behind Su Yanqing's back?" Chun Tingfang didn't expect Ji Bowen to be so smart and be able to guess the truth. She secretly clenched her fists, but her face was still wet with tears. She sobbed, "After I divorced Yi Zhaoxian, I never saw him again. Bowen, Do you hate me that much? How could you suspect my relationship with him? I, I'm dead. As she spoke, she covered her face with a handkerchief and cried in despair. Seeing her heartbroken appearance, G. Bowen also felt bad. So many things had happened at home, and the children had encountered so many dangers, but he actually didn't know. And the evidence pointed to his wife, indicating that she was the culprit. All of this made his head hurt even more and his heart hurt even more. Ji Bowen's face was gloomy and he frowned in deep thought. Ji Yuqi and her brother didn't speak. Only Chun Tingfang's sobs could be heard in the living room. The atmosphere in the living room was suffocating. Just then, a clear and pleasant voice drifted over. "Mom, Uncle Ji, we're back." When Chun Tingfang heard her daughter's voice, she quickly stopped sobbing and wiped away her tears. Just then, Yi Zissou held on to Jiang Tianhao's arm and quickly walked into the living room. Behind them was a servant who was holding bags of various sizes. It was obvious that the two of them had a pleasant honeymoon trip. Their faces were rosy and they were in high spirits. Yi Zissou's brows carried the unique charm of a newly married woman. When they got closer, they realized that the atmosphere wasn't right. Yi Zissou let go of Jiang Tianhao's arm and quickly walked over to Chun Tingfang. Her face was full of worry. "Mom, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Chun Tingfang secretly pinched the back of her hand and smiled. "I'm fine." "Zissou, Tianhao, did your trip go well?" Yi Zissou received her hint and didn't ask any further. She giggled and said, "It went very well. We went to a lot of fun places." "That's right, mother-in-law. You don't know this, but Zissou had so much fun that she didn't want to come back." Jiang Tianhao was still as handsome and gentle as ever. He laughed and teased to liven up the atmosphere. Then he turned to Ji Bowen and said with a smile, "Father-in-law, wherever we go, Zissou will collect interesting local trinkets and bring them to you. She hopes that you can forgive her for being insensible in the past." Yi Zissou pouted cutely. She tugged at his arm and shook it. "Hey, you were the one who said that. Why are you pushing the blame onto me?" "Uncle Ji, you mustn't believe what he said. He collected all those trinkets. I also said that Uncle Ji wouldn't like those childish things. Guess what he said? He said that you don't lack anything but some interesting trinkets, Uncle Ji." The husband and wife echoed each other and deliberately said some funny things. No matter how angry Ji Bowen was, he couldn't lose his temper. It was rare for the family to be reunited. He changed his expression and said to them in a rare, kind tone, "Since you've prepared small gifts, why don't you take them out for me to see?" Jiang Tianhao patted the back of Yi Zissou's hand and smiled brightly. "Hurry up. Father-in-law has already said that if the gifts don't satisfy him, be careful that he won't give us food to eat." Yi Zissou stuck out her tongue playfully. She ran to the pile of bags and rummaged through them. Jiang Tianhao naturally sat across from Ji Bowen and chatted about the interesting things that happened during their trip. Ji Yuqi also chatted with him. The atmosphere became more harmonious. Ji Bowen nodded in satisfaction. He thought that after Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou got married, Jiang Tianhao was much more sensible than before. "This is for Uncle Ji. Uncle Ji, these are all local trinkets. Please don't dislike them. Otherwise, we won't be able to eat lunch." Yi Zissou held a beautifully wrapped big box in front of Ji Bowen and joked playfully. Ji Bowen smiled and said, "Let me see what it is first." He opened the box and saw that it was filled with handicrafts or works of art. There was a ceramic snuff bottle, a set of stamps from 1956 to 2004, a Balinese wooden statue of a goddess, and so on. Although they weren't expensive, they were quite interesting. It was obvious that the two of them had put in some effort. Ji Bowen was still very satisfied. The gift that the couple gave to Chun Tingfang was a very Greek-style jewelry necklace. As soon as she took it out of the jewelry box, she felt that it was dazzling and very charming. The gift for Ji Yuqi was a forget-worry bead made of black agate. Yi Zissou affectionately tied it around her wrist and said with a smile, "Sister Chi-Chi, it is said that forget-worry beads can bring beautiful blessings to people. I wish that you will forget your troubles and sadness and will always be so beautiful." Ji Yuqi lowered her eyes and looked at the forget-worried bead on her wrist. Her lips curved into a faint smile. Thank you, Zissou. I also wish you and Tianhao a happy life. Yi Zissou smiled sweetly. Thank you, Sister Chi-Chi. We will definitely be happy. Hearing Yuqi's blessing, Jiang Tianhao felt very uncomfortable. Had she forgotten about him so quickly? It was obvious that he had forgotten his current identity. The way he looked at Ji Yuqi became complicated. Fortunately, Yi Zissou suddenly said, Of course, we can't forget Ahan's gift. Ahan, this is your gift. Quickly open it and see if you like it. Ji Yunhan looked up and revealed a bright smile. Thank you, second sister, second brother-in-law. Yi Zissou's hand that was holding the gift box trembled. This little rascal had always been rude to her and had never called her second sister. He was acting strangely. He must be up to something again. Her eyes moved slightly, and her smile was even brighter than his. She handed the box to him and said sweetly, Don't be so polite. We are siblings. Quickly, open it and see. Opening the beautifully packaged box, there was a Patek Philippe watch inside. My Gigai, Yi Zissou was quite generous. Ji Yunhan was secretly speechless, but he quickly understood that one could not trap a wolf without sacrificing a child. Their sacrifice now was equivalent to their return tomorrow. His father would definitely compensate them. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 874. Sure enough, Ji Bowen saw the expensive watch and frowned. You two just got married. Don't be too extravagant. Jiang Tianhao stopped smiling and said seriously, How can I be stingy with my family? However, we will do what we can in the future. Please don't worry, father-in-law. Ji Bowen nodded in satisfaction. Quit your original job and rest for 2 days. Then report to the company. I want you to train in the marketing department. What do you think? Jiang Tianhao hurriedly said, Father-in-law's arrangement is very good. I also plan to train in the marketing department. Please don't worry. I won't let you down. Very good. You two must be tired. Go upstairs and rest. Don't go back tonight. Stay here for dinner. After Ji Bowen finished speaking, he glanced at Chen Tingfang. Tingfang, come with me to the study. Chen Tingfang knew that she couldn't avoid it today. She didn't want her daughter and son-in-law to see that something was wrong. She smiled and agreed. Then, she instructed the kitchen to make a few dishes that her daughter and son-in-law liked. Then, she went upstairs to the study. Ji Bowen sat behind the desk with a cigarette in his hand. He hadn't smoked in a long time. He would only smoke when he was troubled. Chen Tingfang looked down and walked behind him in an extremely gentle manner. She massaged his shoulders and said softly, Bowen, you still don't believe me? Ji Bowen's face was gloomy and his voice was hoarse. The evidence is right there. How do you want me to believe you? She said aggrievedly. What kind of evidence is that? It's just the media's wild guesses. I've been with you for so many years. Don't you know my character? Ji Bowen pinched the space between his eyebrows with a headache. Some time ago, Chen Tingfang had indeed done many inappropriate things, and there were indeed many suspicious points about her that made him suspicious. But after all, feelings prevailed. He was unwilling to believe that the simple and cute girl from back then had now become a vicious woman. But this time he was really angry. His son and daughter were hurt, but they hid it from him and refused to tell him. Did they think that he didn't have the ability to protect them? His wife was his family, and so were his children. In fact, his children were even more important in his heart. If Ting Fong was really ambitious and dared to harm his children, he would definitely choose to stand on their side. After making up his mind, his gaze became firm and cold. He turned his head and stared at Chen Tingfang. In a deep voice, he said, If I find out that you really did these things, I won't care about our past relationship. Tingfang, don't disappoint me again. I'm a man of my word. The cold glint in his eyes was like a sharp sword that mercilessly pierced her heart. Her eyes reddened and tears fell uncontrollably. I've always known that in your heart, I can't compare to Yuqi and her brother. That's why I've always known my place. I didn't want you to hate me. Even though she was getting on in years, her appearance was still very good. When she cried, she looked so pitiful that people couldn't help but want to take pity on her. However, Ji Bowen wasn't in the mood at that moment. He waved his hand tiredly. Stop talking. You can leave first. I still have work to do. Chen Fong was very smart. She knew when to be obedient and when to be willful. She put on an affectionate look that said, even if you misunderstood me, I still love you very much. She looked at him as if she wanted to say something. Then she left the study. Ji Bowen watched her figure disappear at the door and sighed deeply. Chen Fong had just returned to her room when Yi Zixin knocked on the door. She walked in with a worried expression. Mom, what happened? You and Uncle Ji don't seem right. Chen Fong leaned against the chair dispiritedly. She pointed at the gossip magazine on the coffee table. Take a look. I'm now a celebrity in Ing City. Ranking of the most vicious stepmothers in the wealthy families. Number 1, Chen Fong. Reasons for being on the list. First, she's heartless enough. Not only did she secretly abuse 2 children who weren't her biological children, she even bribed people from underground organizations to kidnap her stepson and tried to inject him with drugs. She bribed Wang Wei to splash sulfuric acid on her stepdaughter in an attempt to disfigure her. Second, her acting skills are high-end and classy. She can be considered a best actress. Her acting as a virtuous wife and loving mother is so vivid that even her husband, who shares the same bed as her, is kept in the dark. I'll give you 32 likes. Most vicious stepmother, please do your best. We all have high hopes for you. The magazine published Chen Fong's photos and her vicious deeds. The more Yi Zixin read, the more alarmed she became. 80 to 90% of the content was true. What was more frightening was that the person who leaked the news even stated the time and place clearly. Yi Zixin's fingers tightened, and she crumpled the magazine into a ball. She said anxiously, Mom, what's going on? Why would those things appear in the magazine? Chen Fong said coldly, the person who leaked the news seems to have been hiding in the dark and spying on us. Other than Ji Yuqi, I can't think of a second person who knows about these things. Every time we deal with Ji Yuqi, we're always tricked by her. She seems to have known what we're going to do. Zixu, do you think she installed a listening device in our room? Yi Zixu was shocked. That can't be. That's hard to say. I'm going to get someone to check this villa thoroughly. For safety's sake, we'll all get a new SIM card. In the future, we'll use the new SIM card when we talk, in case she eavesdrops on us. Also, if there's anything important in the future, we'll discuss it outside. Yi Zixin hesitated for a moment. Mom, don't you think you're making a mountain out of a molehill? Maybe she's just too lucky, or maybe we gave ourselves away and made her realize that something was wrong. Chen Fong said with certainty, no, once or twice can be considered good luck. But to be able to turn danger into safety every time, that's very unusual. Zixu, this time I've lost a lot. Xia Bing went to jail for me. I have to compensate him. In addition, I spent 300,000 to bribe Wang Wei. I don't have much money left. After Tianhao enters the G Group, let him build up his own power and take control of the G Group as soon as possible. He's our only hope now. Yi Zixin massaged her shoulders and said softly, Mom, don't worry. I've already talked to him. He won't let us down. I hope so. Chen Fong closed her eyes tiredly. Actually, she didn't think highly of Jiang Tianhao, but since they were in the same boat, she had to help him. Ji Yuqi was in the room talking to Qing Sang on the phone. During this period, she was being watched too closely by Chen Fong. She couldn't go to the company, so she entrusted the company to Qing Sang. Every day, Qing Sang would report to her about the company situation. There's news from the factory. The first batch of goods is ready. They can be sent out tonight. The U Family Shopping Mall is also ready. When do you plan to launch our brand? Ji Yuqi thought for a while and said, there's no rush. We missed the summer clothing market. Now, we're aiming for autumn and winter. I plan to hold a fashion conference and invite all the major media outlets to promote our brand. Oh, right. The brand Amy, under the G Group, will be holding a fashion conference next week. Arrange for 2 designers to attend. They're young ladies with no experience. It'll be good for them to go and learn from them. Okay, I understand. The Ministry of Commerce has already signed agreements with a few online media outlets. After our brand is launched, the online promotion will be fully launched. Ji smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work, Ching sang. Help me tell everyone that they'll get a bonus next month." "Okay, then I'll thank CEO Ji on behalf of everyone." Ching Sang's tone had a rare hint of teasing. Ji joked, "I didn't expect Vice, so Ching sang to be so kind. If you share some of this kindness with Yulei, he won't be so sad." Almost everyone in the company knew that Yulei had feelings for Ching Sang. After all, the Western-style CEO, you sent a bouquet of roses to her office every 2 to 3 days. Ching Sang's voice was cold. "Actually, our big boss is also quite sad." The big boss was referring to Shunja. Although the news of Shunja sacrificing himself to save Yuchi was exposed by the media and caused everyone to speculate about their relationship, due to multiple considerations, Yuchi didn't plan to publicize their relationship for the time being. Therefore, Shunja had been complaining recently. Hey, you can't take revenge like this." Yuchi wanted to say something, but suddenly heard a knock on the door. She walked to the door and said, "Someone is knocking on the door." "That's it. I'll leave the company to you." The door opened, and the well-dressed Jiang Tianhao was standing at the door. Perhaps it was because he had been living a good life recently. Jiang Tianhao was in high spirits and looked as gentle as jade. He stood at the door like a beautiful orchid tree. Yuchi sighed inwardly. Even though he was a scumbag, he still had a good appearance. "Senior." "Oh no, brother-in-law. Why are you looking for me?" She was still blocking the door and didn't have any intention of inviting him in. What a joke. A man and a woman alone in the same room together. Wouldn't it cause a lot of criticism? Moreover, this man was her brother-in-law now. Jiang Tianhao seemed to have sensed her vigilance. His eyes darkened slightly, the smile on his lips froze, and his voice was a little bitter. "Yuchi, I just read the newspaper and found out that you were almost splashed with sulfuric acid. I was worried about you, so I came to check on you. Are you okay?" Yuchi's voice was calm. "I'm fine. Thank you for asking." His gaze was deep. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" She said indifferently, "It's not very convenient." He was stunned. He didn't expect her to be so direct. He smiled bitterly and said, "Why do you have to be so clear? You know that I won't do anything to you." "I know, but I can't guarantee that others will understand. You should know the phrase melon and plum field." Yuchi didn't think that she was a good person, but she also had a bottom line. She hated mistresses and couldn't let herself be one. Before he got married, she could pretend to like him and play with his feelings. But after they got married, she wouldn't give him that illusion anymore, and she wouldn't interfere in his marriage with Zisu. Jiang Tianhao's thin lips moved a few times. His deep eyes were fixed on her, and there were many complicated emotions surging in them. After a moment of silence, he said in a low voice, "Yuchi, must you be so heartless to me?" Yuchi's expression was indifferent. "From the moment you got married, there is only the relationship between sister and brother-in-law left between us. Since you've married Zisu, please cherish her. Don't eat from a bowl and look at the pot. If you do, I will look down on you." He was shocked and stared at her in disbelief. "How can you say such things? Don't you understand my feelings?" Ad Shinwu 799. Chapter 875. Yuchi frowned impatiently. She really wanted to pry open his head to see what was going on inside. Could it be that he could have an extramarital affair just because he loved her? Scumbags were disgusting. They played with a woman's feelings in the name of true love. Your feelings? I'm your true love, aren't I? Is there any use? Don't you think it's too late to say all this now? Or are you so naive to think that I'll wait for you forever? Each of her words was more powerful than the last. They were like a hammer that smashed into his heart. His expression instantly turned ugly. He stared at her in disbelief and muttered, "Don't you love me?" Yuchi sneered. "Huh, so I deserve to be a mistress and wait for you forever?" She really didn't know what kind of mentality Zisu had in her previous life when she accepted this kind of true love. A scumbag and a slut were really a match made in heaven. The beautiful dream that Jiang Tianhao had woven in his heart was mercilessly shattered by her. He really thought that Ji Yuqi would wait for him and agree to be the woman outside of his marriage. He had already thought it through. He would love her dearly and treat her 1,000 times better than Yi Zissou. But she was actually unwilling. He clenched his fingers tightly and felt a sharp pain in his palm. Only then did he remember his original motive. He slowly raised his hand and opened his fist in front of her. A beautiful sapphire bracelet lay in his palm. His gaze was startled and his voice was dry. I know that you have a sapphire necklace. When I saw this bracelet, my first thought was that it matched your necklace very well. No need. I already have a better matching bracelet. Ji Yuqi stretched out her wrist and pulled up her sleeve. She wore a sapphire bracelet on her slender, fair wrist. It looked like a light blue stream flowing on her wrist. It was 10 times better than his sapphire bracelet. Jiang Tianhao stared fixedly at her wrist, his handsome face ashen. For some reason, the image of Shun Zhe pouncing on her to save her suddenly popped up in his mind. He squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. Your boyfriend gave it to you? Ji Yuqi withdrew her wrist unhappily. Can't I buy it myself? Jiang Tianhao choked at her words. With an unnatural expression, he said, No, what I meant was, do you have a boyfriend? That's my business, so there's no need for brother-in-law to get involved. Ji Yuqi didn't want to be entangled with him anymore, so she asked with a cold gaze, Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, I want to go in and rest. Her dismissal order was very direct. Jiang Tianhao was momentarily embarrassed and took half a step back. No, bam. Before he could finish speaking, she had already mercilessly slammed the door in his face. In a corridor on the 3rd floor, Yi Zissou's right hand gripped the railing tightly. Her beautiful face was distorted with anger. Her body was trembling and her lips were trembling. She couldn't wait to rush up to Jiang Tianhao and ask him what he thought of her ass. She didn't expect to hear the conversation between Jiang Tianhao and Ji Yuqi in the corridor after returning from her mother's room. Although they had deliberately lowered their voices, the entire building was very quiet. Moreover, she was only a wall away from them, so of course she could hear everything clearly. When the two of them were on their honeymoon abroad, he was gentle and considerate to her. She thought that there was no one else between them, but who knew that it was just her wishful thinking? She was sincere to him, but he was always thinking of two-timing her. It really hurt her heart. Yi Zissou bit her fist and cried silently. Jiang Tianhao stood outside Ji Yuqi's room with an expressionless face. At that moment, his whole body exuded a faintly discernible dark aura. The bestial nature in his body was awakened. His deep eyes were filled with turbulent waves, and he was terrifyingly sinister. One day, he would take everything from the Ji family and make that woman Ji Yuqi kneel in front of him and beg for his love. In the empty corridor, the crisp sound of footsteps could be heard. Yi Zissou's gentle voice came from behind him. Tianhao, why aren't you resting in your room? Why are you standing here in a daze? Jiang Tianhao slowly turned his head. He put his right hand naturally into his trouser pocket and put the bracelet in his palm. A gentle smile appeared on his handsome face. It's too lonely in a room alone. I'm waiting for my wife here. Yi Zissou pretended not to see his little actions. For the first time, she felt disgusted by his perfect smile. She smiled and walked closer to him. She hugged his waist and leaned her head against his chest. Hubby, do you love me? He stroked her soft hair with his warm hands and said without hesitation, Yes. He answered too quickly. It was like a computer program without any mistakes. Yi Zissou looked down mockingly. The thorn in her heart became deeper and deeper, and the gap between the two of them became wider. Marriage was like a besieged city. Two people with bad intentions were besieged in the city and tortured each other. At the reunion dinner that night, everyone put on a mask and played their roles perfectly. The next day, Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou returned to their apartment and started their life together. Yi Zissou had been spoiled by Chun Tingfang since she was young. She had never done any housework before. She had hired a nanny. She disliked the nanny's clumsiness and planned to do it herself. However, when she was mopping the floor, she spilled water everywhere. When she was cooking, she almost started a fire. When she was washing the clothes, she forgot to put them away. Jiang Tianhao finally understood that the soupy Zissou made for him in the past was not made by her. He reluctantly accepted the fact that his wife could not do anything. He took the opportunity to put forward a condition. "Honey, bring my mother over. With her taking care of us, you don't have to work so hard." Yi Zissou was unwilling. At the wedding, she had seen Jiang Tianhao's mother, Yu Xiao. Yu Xiao was a typical rural woman. She dressed tackily and spoke rudely. She did not seem easy to get along with. Thus, she pouted unhappily. "Honey, mother-in-law has worked hard all her life. Let's let her enjoy life in the countryside. Don't trouble her anymore." Jiang Tianhao was unhappy, but his voice was very gentle. "Honey, I'm worried about Mom living in the countryside alone. She's easy to get along with. When we got married, she often praised you in front of me." No matter how unwilling she was, Yi Zissou could not show it. She could only agree and smile. "Really? I miss Mom too. When is a good time? Let's bring her over." Jiang Tianhao curled his lips in satisfaction. "Let's do it this weekend. If you're tired, I'll go back alone." "I'm not tired." Yi Zissou obediently leaned on his chest. Her fingers drew circles mischievously. She said coquettishly, "We're husband and wife. Of course, we have to pick up mother-in-law together. Let her see that I'm a filial daughter-in-law." "Yes, filial. My wife is the most filial." Jiang Tianhao held her mischievous hand and suddenly carried her horizontally. He bent down and kissed her lips. He murmured vaguely, "What a little vixen, Chin Ting Fong did as she said." The next day, she used the excuse of strengthening the security at home. After consulting with Ji Bowen, they contacted the best security company and asked their staff to check the inside and outside of the villa. They also replaced the previous security system with the latest technology. Unfortunately, from the beginning to the end, they did not find any surveillance cameras or listening devices. Not only did Chin Ting Fong not feel relieved, but she felt even more threatened. Was Ji Yuqi really so smart that he could find loopholes in everything? In the following days, Chin Ting Fong calmed down again. Now that Ji Bowen was neither cold nor warm to her, she felt depressed. Those rich madams also stepped on those who were higher up and stepped on those who were lower up. In the past, they would invite her for tea and chat, play cards, or do beauty treatments, but now they all ignored her. She was bored at home for a few days. Finally, when Ji Bowen went on a business trip, she went out to relax and have some fun. In this dark and misty night, a similarly lonely crowd poured into this noisy bar. Under the colorful lights, all kinds of men and women on the dance floor swayed their bodies to the explosive music. Lazy and charming middle-aged women or young and beautiful middle-aged women sat at the bar, drinking quietly. Men were looking for good prey, impatiently or elegantly approaching. "Beauty, can I have a dance with you?" A well-dressed, successful man leaned against the bar counter. He smiled as he looked at the woman who was drinking. The woman had a graceful figure, heavy makeup, sexy red lips that were like raging flames, and her slender eyes were filled with boundless flirtatiousness. The rarest thing about her was that she had a pair of fair and slender hands. Her slender fingers held the wine glass and gently swayed it. Her languid and enchanting charm diffused in this ambiguous atmosphere, causing people to be so excited that they couldn't help but tremble. Her charming eyes moved slightly, and her chin was slightly raised, reserved and elegant. "Not interested, but I'll allow you to drink with me." Her voice was cold, like a queen. With a man's status, there were many women who flocked to him like bees and butterflies. He rarely met such a cold and arrogant type, so he could not help but be interested. He curled his lips and sat beside her. He snapped his fingers. "Whiskey on the rocks." The bartender poured a glass of wine at the fastest speed and placed it in front of him. The man turned to look at the woman sitting beside him. She was not like other women who chattered endlessly. She quietly tasted the red wine in her hand, lazy and charming like a Persian cat in the afternoon. He laughed softly. I don't think I've seen you here before. Chun Tingfang looked up slightly and said lightly, I rarely come out to play. She was not lying. When she was 20 years old, she was too young and did not know how to play. When she was 30 years old, she had a good relationship with her ex-husband, so there was no need for her to come out to play. After she married Ji Bowen, she had a lot of worries and pressure. She wanted to come out to relax, but her status was there, and she was afraid that she would meet people in the circle when she went out to play. The man raised his eyebrows, and a smile appeared on his handsome face. I didn't expect to be so honored. Chun Tingfang did not say a word to his words, and used the wine glass in her hand to touch his glass. Drink. Okay, how can I not obey a beauty's order? My name is David. How should I address you, beauty? The man took a sip of wine and smiled. Of course, she would not tell others her real name when she came out to play. Chun Tingfang said casually, Mary. David laughed softly. His laughter was joyful, and there was a hint of teasing. Good name. She glanced at him sideways, and her red lips curved slightly. It's just a name. What's so funny, Muscle Man? Muscle Man was mocking his name, David. Everyone knew that David was a sculpture by Michelangelo, and he had muscles that were a perfect combination of strength and beauty. David laughed even more happily. Oh, my dear Miss Mary, please don't be angry. I just think that this name suits your temperament very well. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 876. Chun Tingfang shrugged and said lazily, Thanks for the compliment. David was very good at flirting. With just a few words, he had piqued Chun Tingfang's interest. She chatted happily with him, and the two of them drank one glass after another. Unknowingly, he had already put his arm around her waist. She looked at his smooth chin in a daze and laughed in a mesmerizing voice. I'm drunk, gentlemen. Please call a cab for me. David's palm caressed her waist, and his thin coat blew warm air into her ear. His voice was dark and magnetic, with a hint of seduction. Come with me. No. Chun Tingfang giggled. She placed her soft hands on his chest and used a little strength to sit up in his arms. She was just drunk and had not lost her mind. It was okay to flirt, but it was too dangerous to have a one-night stand, especially with a man who was so slippery. Woman, you've already ignited my fire. Do you think you can escape so easily? David pulled her into his arms, his deep eyes flickering with fire. Chun Tingfang was not a pure girl. His little tricks could not scare her. She did not change her expression and took out her phone from her handbag. She lazily dialed a number and said in a drunken voice, Ihan, I'm drunk. A man's anxious voice suddenly came from the other side of the phone. Where are you? I'll come pick you up. Chun Tingfang chuckled. This was her original goal. He was the only person she could trust now. She pushed David's hand away from her waist. I'm at Lanyan Bar. Hurry up. I'll wait for you. Okay. Don't run around. Gigai, sit and wait for me. Don't let strange men near you. Xiao Yihan sounded very anxious. He seemed to have bumped into something, and there was a loud sound of something breaking from the phone. She did not know if it was the effect of the alcohol, but Chun Tingfang suddenly felt that the man who was worried about her was very cute. Is it really not okay? Just as she was in a daze, the unique scent of a man entered her nose, and David buried his head in her neck. Stop messing around. I'm not in the mood today. She frowned impatiently and pushed his furry head away. Well, coercion is not the behavior of a gentleman. David stood up and slowly tidied up his clothes. His elegant and reserved appearance made people unable to resist the urge to destroy him. The blood in Chun Tingfang's body was faintly burning. She raised her eyebrows and smiled wickedly. Suddenly, she lay in his arms and used their bodies to block her hand from sliding down until she reached the part he was proud of. His body suddenly tensed up, and he stared at her with a dangerous gaze. He gritted his teeth and said, You seductress, I really want to do you on the spot. She knew when to stop and quickly retreated. Her eyes were filled with mischief. Mr. Muscle, you should find someone else. David's handsome face darkened as he bared his teeth at her. seeing the man's figure leaving in a sorry state. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her seductive and wanton laughter was inconspicuous in the noisy night, but ignited a flame in some people's eyes. Another two people came up to hit on her. Looking at them, they seemed to be used to playing multiplayer games. Enchanting was drunk, and her head started to feel heavy. She didn't have the patience to pay attention to them. Who would have thought that these two would be so thick-skinned and wouldn't let her go? They actually forcefully grabbed her left and right arms and took her out of the bar. "You two bastards, let go of me." She slurred and pushed one of them away. She stumbled forward and suddenly bumped into a warm wall. The wall actually reached out and caught her. A familiar voice sounded above her head. "She's my girl, get lost." The voice was cold and filled with anger and murderous intent. The two men looked at each other and hurriedly ran away. Xiao Yihan lowered his head and looked helplessly at the girl in his arms. He didn't know what she thought he was, but she actually clung onto him tightly like an octopus. She even muttered softly, "So cold, so comfortable." His eyebrows twitched and his face darkened. He patted her back and called out to her, "Tingfang, wake up. It's me, Han." In a daze, Tingfang felt that she was hugging an ice-cold body, relieving the heat and dryness she felt after getting drunk. She seemed to hear Xiao Yihan's voice and tried hard to open her eyes. From this angle, she could see Xiao Yihan's thin chin and straight nose. Seeing that she opened her eyes, his tense mouth relaxed, and his obsidian-like eyes glowed with gentleness. He caressed her forehead and asked with concern, "Are you okay? Do you recognize who I am?" "I'm going to faint." Tingfang was so drunk that she felt uncomfortable. Her head hurt and her chest felt stuffy. Her remaining rationality made her want to get out of his arms, but her soft body didn't allow it. Her legs were so light that she couldn't even stand properly. "You're already so drunk. Why are you still trying to act tough? Gigai, don't move." Xiao Yihan naturally carried her horizontally and walked towards his car. Tingfang lay in his arms and smelled his unique scent. Her cheeks were burning and her heart suddenly started to beat faster. Even her drunkenness seemed to have dissipated a little. Xiao Yihan placed her in the car and got in as well. He leaned over and was almost touching her. His hands caressed her side. She moved uneasily and felt inexplicably nervous. However, she saw him grab the seatbelt buckle and fasten it for her. When he straightened his body and pulled away from her, she felt a faint sense of disappointment. Tingfang held her forehead and thought that she must have drunk too much. She must have drunk too much. "Yihan, please take me home." She leaned against the back of the seat and closed her eyes to rest. The only response she got was the sound of the car starting. Xiao Yihan drove the car silently and didn't say a word. In a daze, Tingfang dreamed of the cat she used to keep in front of her chest. Its wet head was licking her face, and its meaty claws were scratching her waist. She impatiently reached out her hand and wanted to shake off the cat that was disturbing her dreams. Unexpectedly, her hand was caught by someone. She wanted to call out, but her mouth was blocked. Her whole body was so hot that it was about to explode. She struggled to open her eyes. An enlarged, handsome face appeared in front of her. There was a touch of innocence in his handsomeness. His exquisite face was dyed with an abnormal blush, and his deep eyes were filled with lust. His lips parted slightly, and he panted heavily. His voice was low and hoarse. "Tingfang, I want you. I want you so much that my body hurts." She widened her eyes in shock. She didn't know when the two of them were lying in an unfamiliar room. Their clothes were already in a mess. Being bullied by a man who was more than 10 years younger than her, she flew into a rage out of humiliation. She raised her hand and slapped his cheek. He didn't dodge and allowed her hand to land on his flushed cheeks. With a crisp slap, a few red marks were left on his cheeks. She looked away uncomfortably and pushed him away. She said angrily, "I'll take it as if nothing happened today. Xiao Yihan, let's end it here." She was embarrassed and angry at the same time. Her fingers trembled as she tidied up her clothes. Even when she carried her handbag and walked to the door, she still did not hear Xiao Yihan's voice. The complicated emotions in her heart made her stop in her tracks uncontrollably. She turned around to take a look, only to see him sitting at the head of the bed with his clothes disheveled. His hands were hugging his head, and his head was buried very, very low. She could not see his face clearly, but something quickly slid down his cheeks and rolled to the floor, gathering into a puddle. He was crying. Men don't cry easily, but he was actually crying. At that moment, her heart ached. This was different from the love between an elder and a junior. This was the love between a man and a woman. Towards this man who admired her and bravely expressed his love for her, she couldn't ignore his tears. She couldn't control her legs as she walked step by step to his side and stood still. She handed him a handkerchief and said, "Don't cry. You're a man." Xiao Yihan's shoulders shook a few times. Suddenly, he reached out and hugged her legs. His hoarse voice was full of grievance as he said, "Unless you take back what you said just now." How childish. Chen Tingfang sighed and ruffled his hair. "I said a lot of things. Which one were you referring to?" "The one about us ending it here." His arms around her legs tightened. His voice was pained as he said, "I'll stay away from you in the future, but I beg you, don't let us become strangers." She had never heard this sunny and proud man speak in such a humble tone. Chen Tingfang's heart ached for no reason. She lowered her head and stared blankly at the top of his head. She muttered, "What do you like about me? At my age, I'm old enough to be your mother." He was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "Warmth. You let me feel the warmth of a family. Although I grew up in a wealthy family, my parents only knew how to do business and never cared about me. When I grew up, the girls who approached me all had other intentions. No one cared about me as sincerely as you do. To me, age is not a problem. I just like you. I don't care if you have a family or what status you have now. Those aren't important. What's important is that I like you as a person." Chen Tingfang's heart trembled. Her feelings and fantasies about love had long been obliterated by life. However, Xiao Yihan's appearance was like a flame in her life. It satisfied her vanity as a woman and ignited her forbidden pleasure. Her body trembled slightly as a voice in her head shouted, "You're still young. How can you live like a shell without a soul? Accept him. Accept this young man's surging feelings." Tingfang. Feeling her trembling, Xiao Yihan called out her name. His wet and warm tongue devoutly worshipped her calf. He was like a believer in love. No matter how many thorns lay in front of him, he was willing to move forward without a care for his own safety. Chen Tingfang was suddenly infected by his courage. We hugged her in his arms and kissed her on the cheek. She did not push him away. Gradually, it became difficult to tell who was the first to take the initiative. The two lonely people hugged each other fiercely. Soon, they were entangled in this blurry night. Xiao Yihan's movements were very inexperienced. This made Chen Tingfang believe that it was indeed his first time. She was shy and proud as she guided him to become a real man. The moment the two of them made love, he leaned over her ear and said, "I love you," over and over again. She was so moved that tears streamed down her face. Beauty novel Hongcha 866 that you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.